the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Good evening and welcome to Zandvoort for the next round of the PRL GT3 Fixed and Sprint Series here live on RaceSpotTV. This circuit has certainly gone through its fair share of changes in the last few years. Now it's time to bring GT3 machinery to the circuit in something that doesn't really happen very often in the real world, but we're bringing it here to the PRL. Over 40 of them are ready to go for the next round of the PRL GT3 Fixed Series, round number 5. After which, of course, we will apply our drop weeks. It's myself, Ian O'Leary, and Darren Thacker with you again this Tuesday night. And we're continuing, Darren, a tour of circuits that are not traditionally particularly easy to overtake on.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, I think, to really see how drivers pick their way through tonight. Of course, almost the running theme at the moment of tracks where you really have to craft and overtake, so drivers have to be right on it from the word go. And it really does put the onus on qualifying, of course. It means that drivers really have to be, putting quite a lot of importance on their qualifying pace. And I don't think that's going to change over the next couple of weeks either.
Maybe next time it'll get a little bit easier, but yeah, this season is very much made up of those circuits where it is a little bit more difficult than normal to pass, other than Daytona, where we got some very close finishes indeed in both GT3 series. So far this season, it has not been quite domination, but it's a big lead for Ricardo Delgado after 4 rounds over Sully Sad. Then it's Brett Furman, who is in 3rd place, although he is going well. He's only been off the podium once, although you can say the same for Ricardo Delgado. Andrew Trickett and Matt Schaefer inside the top 5, ahead of Jay Steffi, 4 points further back. David Bush the third, Dale Pedersen, Felix Feliz and Jason Park round out the top 10. In the AM standings, Colin McKenzie's leading by quite some way ahead of Pete Measure, with Ryan Chandler in 3rd. Aaron Sunday is just a point ahead of Nick Bruno, who is joined this session with the wrong car. Not sure whether he's going to race or not. Joe Pagero is 1 point outside the top 5, with Reagan Chandler, Luke Davis, Jay Jensen and Ian Southern rounding out the top 10. Those last 2 tied on points. Lunatic Racing are leading the team standings by 3 points ahead of Riot Motorsports, with SGE Esports only 12 points further back in 3rd. Asuti Orange in 4th place, 29 points back in 4th. Then you get a bit of a bigger gap. B&O Cartomania round out the top 5, just 3 points ahead of Sim Racing PR, with A3 Motorsports in 7th, Tachyon Sinsport, Parabella Cobalt and Hyperion Racing rounding out the top 10. Before we go further, let's thank the sponsors, of course, who make these broadcasts possible here each and every night on RaceSpotTV, bringing you the Precision Racing League all season long, starting with Logitech G. Logitech G wheels and pedals are equipped with true force feedback to help you feel the road and own the race. Use code PRECISION at checkout on logitechg.com for 5 to 10% off of your purchase. Advanced Sim Racing, owned and operated by passionate sim racers. Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminium profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision 5 coupon code. Racebox Sim Racing. RaceSpot offers mid and high-end boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, our boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit raceboxsimracing.com and get a 5% discount using the Precision5 coupon code. The Butt Kicker. Butt Kicker products add incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Moradness is a performance lifestyle brand motivated by motorsport and founded by professional race car driver Daniel Morad. For more, visit moradness.com. Mr. Head's iRacing Photography. Capture your finest, proudest or simply worst moments from your hobby in up to 8K resolution. A great addition to any sim room. And finally, get ready to learn to be fast with Advanced Motorsports. Follow them on their socials to become a better driver. We have got just over 8 minutes left in this qualifying session. Plenty of time to get into it this evening, as there's the rare sight, perhaps, of two drivers slipstreaming off of one another here. One of them's Brett Thurman in the Porsche. He's part of the SRT Orange team, so I'd imagine that's Jared Keane right behind him, although I don't know for sure at the moment. Can't see Jared Keane inside the top 5. That's because he's down in 9th place at the moment. I've got a bit slipstreaming. He wasn't on my bingo card tonight.
No, not a circuit that you necessarily would associate with slipstreaming. You think you may be able to get a little bit down the main straight and maybe up towards turn 6, but really around quite a large portion of this circuit, difficult to really gain anything at all with the high speed and flowing nature of the sector, particularly around the second sector through turns 8 and 9 with more than 180 degrees worth of rotation in each of those corners. You come into this stadium section where we find Felix Felice, and you're not really going to want to be sitting too close to the car in front of you. So interesting to see, but it's clearly not working too much against Brett Thurman for the time being, because being on original pole, something is clearly going right.
Yep, now board with Felix Felice, who's practicing pit entry, which is pretty tight here, and I can imagine it's going to be a bit of a squash in pit lane today. Colin McKenzie here is in 16th place. Jakob Finkner is currently leading the way in the AM standings with 15th position. Wonder whether McKenzie's being held up here by this Ferrari or what's gone on, because these two are running very close together. Although I would imagine with over 40 drivers on the circuit, 41 have currently set times, I would imagine it's a bit of a battle to get some free track space really, in a lap that only takes 1 minute 33 seconds, even in these cars.
Yeah, that is going to be part of the challenge, although, you know, you're saying that, and it's a very good point, but we're seeing quite a lot of these drivers with a lot of room, which begs the question, where is everybody else? Are they bunching up around the circuit? Jakob Finkner may find a couple of them in his way into the final couple of corners. You can see a couple of drivers out into the distance. That may start to get in, or drivers may start to get involved towards the end of the laps. Drivers can give themselves enough room for the opening couple of sectors, but there's so much traffic on the circuit that it means that there's always that risk that you run of finding or tripping over a car or two through the final couple of corners. Jakob looks like he's going to get away with it though, and let's see if he can get back to the front of that AM class. Needs a couple of attempts to get past Colin McKenzie once again.
Yeah, there's only 9 in pit lane, by the way, so yeah, where is everybody at the moment? That's although it's grown up a little bit now. It's an average of about 1 car every 3 seconds, which isn't much space, but anyway. Finkner now over the line. Can he get anywhere near McKenzie with this lap time? Not really. That is going to be no improvement in terms of AM position for him. Sully Sad tries to gain some positions as well in the standings. He is currently 76 thousandths of a second behind Brett Thurman, and what's immediately noticeable actually is that we've got Porsches in 1st, 2nd and 3rd. Not sure what about it is about this characteristic of the Porsche that is making them go so well round here just for the moment. However, they are flying, and it's a 34.4. That is very close to his previous lap time, but not quite as good. So 1, 2, 3, still the Porsches, and Ricardo Delgado may have to just limit the damage here tonight by the looks of this.
Yeah, let's see if Tyler Graff can almost leapfrog his way ahead of some of the other Porsches as he reaches the line. Doesn't look like it. 33.9 seemed to be the time for him. Will stay in P3. A few tenths down on what he could be, or he had already done. As Ricardo Delgado, the number 3 in P4, wouldn't mind changing that, maybe match somewhat. He will come out of the middle sector towards the stadium section, rise over this little crest, pick your braking point. Tricky to do so with the corner being nearly blind, as little crests around this circuit can almost hide where some of the apexes are, but getting out smartly, having to really slide the car through the corner. Difficult to get the power down seemingly in this Chevy. Let's see around the final couple of corners how he's able to do and try and get it to the line, of course.
Here he goes up towards the start-finish line, and it is half a second off of pole. Everybody has very much reached their limit, and this seems to be a common theme of when we're joining these sessions. Everybody seems to have reached their limit. Big slide for one of the Porsches up ahead. Oh, David Bush is not going to be slowed down by that Porsche remarkably. If he goes quicker on this lap, I will be taking my hat off to him. Oh no, he's not going to be going quicker, I'm afraid. That was a bit of a curse. He gets onto the grass ever so slightly, so has to correct the slide, but there in a couple of corners is an exact show of why this race is going to be very, very difficult. It's not just about getting pole position and holding the front, it is much more difficult than that.
Yes, so important to really be able to try and keep the car under control, and clearly difficult to do so at parts around the circuit. Telegraph going to improve this time around. Oh, he's going to improve on the lap time, but not enough to improve the position. Only 200ths worth of an improvement for Tyler. He'll clear himself a 10th ahead of Ricardo Delgado, but that won't be too much of a consolation. I'm sure he would have been hoping for the front row. At least Andrew Trickett looking to try and maybe get himself onto the front few rows as well. Currently in P10, still a good result, or would be a good result regardless, but he won't be improving on that lap. We'll have to go again this time around, but time is ticking away for drivers to get these lap times in.
It is. What a Warden, him in the Ferrari, currently 15th place. Sean Stecker's just got up ahead of him, by the way. Colin McKenzie is put under a bit of pressure for the pole position, with just about 2.5 minutes remaining in the session. Has anybody got anything to improve with here? It's not looking particularly likely. I think Brett Furman is looking good for pole position here. And again, Porsche 1, 2, 3. I wonder what that's going to do, not only for this series, where we've got the championship leader driving a Corvette, and the next three in the championship, Sully Sad, Brett Furman and Andrew Trickett, who are all driving Porsches, and they might well gain points on him today. But I wonder what that's going to do for the Sprint Series Open Setup Championship as well, where we've got Corvette, Acura in the top three, and then further behind Chris Beats in the Porsche, but not very many Porsches, to be honest. Simon Theriault, probably the biggest name in the Sprint Series to have the Porsche, so it's going to be interesting, I think, in the next session. Does it carry over to the Open Setup version of this championship, and are those Porsche drivers able to capitalise on it? Because it's fair to say that those drivers in Porsches are a bit further down that championship than they are down this one.
Yeah, maybe the Porsche just has, a little bit more. It's a little bit easier to drive that Porsche without doing anything to the car. Of course, I think that's really where the drivers are going to be sitting at. There may be other cars that you're able to tinker with a little bit and get even more out of by changing a couple of things with the setup than you do with the Porsche, which is why we see a heavier dominance of the car in the Fixed Series rather than the Sprint Series. But it is always interesting when we come to an evening's worth of racing to almost see if there is any kind of replication of the results in the Fixed Series into the Sprint Series in terms of which cars are working best. It's not always the case, but sometimes it is the case, and the Porsche may be working well here this evening. It is a very particular circuit, long flowing corners all the way around this circuit, not really many straights, just the run towards turn one out of the final corner really, you'd say, is the longest straight on the circuit. A couple of medium length straights, but not really enough to make you think too much about that straight line speed, I'd say.
Just for reference on that, both races at Daytona were won by Corvettes, and both races at Suzuka last week were won by Acura. So there is some truth to that. There is some correlation, but not many Porsche race wins yet. When there's been the opportunity to change setup, it's been Acura, Corvette, McLaren, the four manufacturer wins, if you like, and two of them, as I say, going to Acura. In the last 2 weeks, with Elliot Paczynski winning 2 in a row. We'll get to that series a little bit later on, but there is a very interesting thing going on there with the setup changing that maybe we can get into a little bit later on. Ricardo Delgado is making his way now down in towards the chicane. I don't think he's going to improve here, but he's carrying on anyway into the final corners. Big slide on the way towards turn 11 as a load of gravel is kicked up onto the circuit, and he's slowing down on the exit of the corner. That is going to be one of those corners where the new graphics and behaviour of the gravel model is going to be really tested, as we have a look at some very lifeless looking whatever they're called. What are those yellow plants called? Dandelions? Anyway, there's going to be a lot of gravel onto the circuit through turn 11 and 12, that's for sure. It's going to make it very slippery, and unfortunately might make overtakes into that tight chicane hairpin thing pretty difficult.
Yeah, and if it wasn't already difficult enough for some of these drivers to make moves, they don't really need to be scared off more. And that could be a bit of an issue that we find ourselves in, after not very long in the race, realistically. So that could be a concern. This corner here down at turn 2 could be in a really interesting, or turn 3, I should say, really interesting place to make a move as well. With the banking, of course, that has been added in somewhat recently.
Which I'm not a fan of. But never mind. We'll get into that discussion a little bit later on, but I'm not a particular fan of circuits changing themselves just for one race series to jeopardise everyone else's racing, but never mind. They've done it now. The checker flag waves and everybody is back to pit lane. We'll show you the pole lap when the session advances forward to warm up, but in the meantime I think we can show you the grid for this race, as it is going to be a very important track position day. And as you can see, Brett Furman has taken the pole position in the Porsches 1, 2 and 3. Furman, Sad, Graf 1, 2, 3 early on ahead of Ricardo Delgado in the first of the Corvettes. Last week's winner Jason Park is 5th ahead of Andrew Trickett, who'll be disappointed to be in 6th place, I think, considering where his manufacturer is. The next 2 cars, also Porsches, Felix Feliz and Jarrett Keane, followed by Dale Pedersen and David Bush III. Jay Steffi and Wardo Warden are on row 6. Ross Sortino and Thomas Rep are on row 7. That's Thomas Rep stealing a late pole position away from Colin McKenzie, who's 15th ahead of Sean Stecker. Richard Saavedra and Dave Peterson are on row 9. At row 10 is Jakob Finkner and Seb Gouffier, with Sam Smeltzer and Ian Southern behind them. David Morse and Luke Davis round off row 12. It's Pete Medja, second in the championship, down in 25th in qualifying, ahead of Kevin Bergqvist, with Andrew Ellis and Herbert Pineda on row 14. Ian Cabana and Jabe Jensen round out the 15th row, with Luis Ortiz and also Matt Sheriff on row 16. Robert Jeffries and Aaron Sunday are next, ahead of Regan Chandler and Nikos Zanidakis. 37th has gone to Neil Alexander ahead of Nick Bruno, who, as I mentioned, has selected the Mustang. He's meant to be driving a Porsche this season, but he joined in the wrong one. He's decided to go for it anyway. Evander Josephfeld is 39th ahead of Christopher Rhines, then Scott Jeffries in 41st. We may get another couple joining us later, one of them Sean Murphy, who's further down the field. We will see whether they join or not. Let's go forward with Brett Furman here and just see exactly what has changed around this racetrack. Of course, it's a very cambered circuit, if I can put it like that. Initially, through turn 1, that's pointing the right way already. Then you're up through turn 2, which is off camber a little bit on the way towards the entry. Then you're sticking right to the right-hand side. Up top here, through turn 3, up top through the banking, and then just pulling low, if you like, on the exit, and then getting the run through this flat-out section. So much camber to be dealing with around here.
Yeah, of course, working your way through the sand dunes as you work your way up towards turn 6 and in towards turn 7. Such a difficult part of the racetrack to go side by side. I mean, drivers, I think, are going to be almost scared off doing that very early on indeed. Flicking it right again at turn 8. It's just a continuation of driving right as you get towards turn 9. There's pretty much 360 degrees of rotation to the right between turn 5 and turn 9 as we get ourselves back turning left at turn 10. But again, so much rotation to try and wrestle into the cars. Really difficult for some of the drivers to be able to get that amount of rotation. If you're slightly offline in the early part of the corner, you will find yourself losing time hand over fist throughout the rest of the corner into the exit, and that's maybe why we're seeing a couple of drivers maybe a little bit further down the order than we would expect. Thurman's nailed this part of the lap though. He's going to get it to the final couple of corners, and all he needs to think about is this exit towards the start finish line.
And no longer a challenging final corner. Instead, it's a banked load of rubbish. Anyway, it's a flat-out run on the way through the penultimate corner onto the front straight, and a decent overtaking chance down there at turn 1 as well, which I guess is fair enough. If you were looking at this circuit, you'd be forgiven for thinking that this is a quite hilly part of the world, but actually it's really not. As you say, it is just the sand dunes, really, that make this circuit look like one of the hilliest and elevation changing in the world, certainly in Europe, but no, not really. It's a very, very flat part of the world, pretty close to Amsterdam, right on the west coast of the Netherlands. Sort of, if you want to picture the Netherlands as sort of a rectangle that's stood upwards, sort of halfway down the left-hand side, if you want to picture it that way. And it's a very flat part of the world, other than these sand dunes here, which do really give this circuit actually quite a lot of character. I mean, as I say, circuits around the Netherlands often don't have very much elevation character. We think of places like Assen, for example, which is absolutely dead flat. But this circuit does, I think, bring a lot of its character out, actually, because of the dunes that it's sort of situated in.
Yeah, it's almost hard to believe that this is a Dutch circuit sometimes. I know that the curbing helps remind us with the orange and the white. But, you know, it's not necessarily something you'd expect, you know, stereotypically. The Netherlands is very flat, and it is indeed. But this part of the North Sea coast is a little bit more elevated than other parts of the country. And it is nice to see that is reflected in the circuit. I know you don't like the banking, but I feel like it gives the circuit, just on a basic level, a little bit more character than it had before.
Really?
I just feel like it gives it that little bit more. I don't really know how to describe it, really. It's just it makes it slightly more different, and I know that's what they were trying to do. And yeah, I'm trying to find a way to give them credit here. That's the way I think I've settled in doing it.
Do you not feel like it feels to me very manufactured rather than characterful?
I mean, Final Corner used to be banked back in the 50s and 60s, didn't it? So
I don't know. Wasn't alive.
A long time. Yeah, I believe so. A long time ago. Turn 3. I think. Yeah, they added the banking in. But it's not the changes that I hate the most around the world at the moment. There are some tracks that are going different ways and trying to change bits around with their circuit that don't really make much sense. I don't mind the banking at the Final Corner. Turn 3, I kind of back you on that.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. As much as people say, you know, the banking at turn 3 does let people have different lines and whatever, and I hope that is the case. However, based on my experience with this circuit, in anything other than F1 cars, it makes it very difficult to overtake. And I know that the previous iteration of the corner wasn't easy to overtake either, but it makes it almost impossible, because the top line is absolutely key. And if you don't have it, you don't have the position either. We will see, though. What other circuits are you against changing? What?
You know,
which
little
others?
changes. Daytona taking away the grass at Le Mans.
Oh yeah, that is rubbish.
Very basic one. That is egregious. That they should be absolutely ashamed with that. What else? That's the one I was thinking off from the top of my head.
Okay.
Have to come back to me. I'll write up.
No, well, that's fine. That's fine. To be fair, that's fine. To be fair, absolutely. Yeah. But we should get some more grass. We should bring the grass back at Daytona. At least to the bus stop. Although, you know, it's hard to argue against safety arguments. After all, you don't want people barrel rolling at 200 miles an hour during the Daytona 500, for example. So it's a very difficult balance to strike. Although I did see someone on social media saying they could at least paint it. You know, that make it look a little bit better. Yeah. But not that would make any realistic difference to the racing. Although in the end, maybe it wasn't as bad as I feared, actually, at Daytona the other week. I feared it would be a real detractor, but never mind. It wasn't so bad in the end as we have a look. I've seen the underside of that grandstand before. That's some sponsorship placement for you, isn't it? Have a look at that. Yeah, there you go. Wonder how much they pay for that. Anyway, they move on to the formation lap, and they will do a full formation lap. They do not grid up on the way down towards turn 11, which is where you would if you were on a short pace lap, but instead through towards turn 1 and through a whole lap. This circuit as well, apart from the actual banking itself, look at how it's changed on the surroundings. If any of you are following racing around Zandvoort maybe 10 years ago or so, you'll notice the surroundings, they're very, very different indeed. That's what an F1 circuit does bring, that I think probably is positive. Lots more things on the inside of turn number 1, whatever they're used for. Lots more space for stuff in terms of bringing cars in. So there's the positives. You can see that's a lot more built up. If you've ever watched a race from Zandvoort about 10 years ago, it's a lot more built up there in that sort of little paddock section between, sort of on the inside of turn 1, 2 and 3, if you like.
Yeah, absolutely is, and they've kind of packed it in that little part of the circuit. Of course, with the remodelling of turn 3, it's given them a little less room. There's a clearer marker between where the paddock ends and where the track starts, as it's elevated ever so slightly towards the back end of the paddock. But yeah, changes happening galore here at this circuit across. Really, some quite a few European circuits, you know, Hungarian getting some changes as well. But I don't quite believe we're going there in this calendar. But we've been there somewhat lately in the GT GT3 calendar. Hopefully those changes could be coming to the sim soon. We'll have to wait and see. I don't think they've completed those updates, actually. I think they're doing more of them.
I don't know what they've done.
Oh, they've remodeled the paddock.
Okay.
And the grandstands towards turn 1. They've basically just made it a little bit beefier.
Okay. I didn't know that. Fair enough. I only really see the Hungaroring when F1 goes there, so fair enough. Yeah, that will be interesting to watch, although these things do take some time to get to iRacing sometimes, although this circuit was updated pretty well, I've got to say, pretty quickly, and we now get to enjoy it in the service. Someone mentioning in user chat just how dark it is. Well, yeah, it is pretty overcast, which is not helping the fact it's 6:30 in the afternoon as well when we're starting this race. The race will end at about 7:15 in sim, but we have moved into April. So in the sim, so after going to January, back to January last week, we have gone back to April again this time round. I'm not sure when the sun sets in April, but it's probably around this time. We may well see headlights being fully utilised towards the end of this, but look how dark it is. There's no chance of rain, by the way, in the Fixed Series this season, but my goodness, it's dark.
Clouds rolling in from the North Sea, from our part of the world, Ewan, of course.
Probably came from the clouds, yeah.
Yeah, across the water. But drivers going to have to adapt. That's what we always say. But maybe it could create a little bit of an added dynamic to this race with the dying light creating a couple more difficult moments for drivers, maybe offline, off kilter through some of the longer corners, particularly around the middle part of the lap. So definitely risks there, but. These drivers, I'm sure, will have had a little bit of practice, at least in these race conditions, and should be able to know how the cars are going to feel, light or no light.
Let's see how we get on and just how much of these cars we're going to see as they cross the line of the checkered flag in about 35 minutes' time. The pace car will be just about to pull in to pit lane, and we will be ready to go in the next round of the PRL GT3 Fixed Series, round number 5. After this week, the drop rounds will be applied, and we will get a real view as to what this championship's going to look like. Brett Furman from the pole position gets us underway, and the green flag waves already here at Zandvoort. The battle for second is very tight indeed as Delgado breaks early. He lets Jason Park, last week's winner, down his inside, and Park's down the inside of Sunny Sad as well. He's going to get to third place here, right the way from fifth. Jason Park already up to third, side by side on the way towards turn 2 as they all come into this banked corner. It's a spin in the background, and we've got trouble further down the field and in the banking as well. We've got a car spun. Oh, are we going to get through here cleanly? Just about, everybody still pointing in the right direction.
Yeah, but then it's the melee, the car off the road, spearing into the wall in the background. It's difficult to see who that was for the moment, but they were kicked off into the barrier right towards the back of the field, running in towards turn 6 now, trying to keep it nice and pinned into the right-hander at 7, into the right-hander of 8 as well. Drivers just trying to keep it on the circuit. Difficult in the opening stages, as we expected, not as wide as it could be up there in that straight that isn't really a straight, and a few drivers coming a cropper to it.
Oh, and a big spin for one of the Acuras as well before turn 8 here. This is a big spin here, turn 9 I should say, apologies, that's just before the slower turn 9, and we'll get a view on who that is in a moment. Unfortunately, we've already seen spins for, there was Dale Pedersen, by the way, he was in the Acura. We've already seen spin for Dave Jensen and Matt Sheriff, both in the McLarens. Robert Jeffries and Herbert Pineda are already down to pit lane, so we've lost 2 of the 42 who have started this race. Kevin Bergqvist might have been the Ferrari who hit the wall, although I'm not sure. Warden has lost 11 places as well on this start. Plenty of replays to look back in a few moments' time as Brett Furman comes over the line at the end of lap 1, leading from pole.
Yeah, Thurman really doing a good job at getting the starts nailed at this season so far. Hasn't really been one to fall down the order, so impressive to see for the number 69 that he is still running right at the head of the field. Tyler Graf sticking with it though, making sure he's keeping himself involved. And what a start from Jason Park to get down the inside at turn 1, gain those 2 positions, and really to be able to defend that on the apex. You often see drivers come back around the outside or have a better exit through the opening corner at Tarzan, but Jason Park was able to make sure that he could secure the spot, and now try and work his way maybe into the top 2 if he can try and get after Tyler Graf.
It's 3 wide and spin to the inside for one of the McLarens. One problem with that building is that it's always in the way. Here it is from another angle, just 3 wide, didn't really go there, and a big spin, I'm afraid, for Dave Jensen in the 692, I should say. That's one of the Ferraris that had to just skirt wide to avoid. This is the big contact on the wall with a different one of the Ferraris. I think that was indeed Bergqvist in the Ferrari on the left-hand side. There was already sort of half spins going on up ahead here, and he was hit by another Ferrari as they were trying to get through free wide, and they've totally dumped Bergqvist in the wall there.
Yeah, I can't imagine Bergqvist's going to be entirely overjoyed by that. As we see further replays, oh, it gets tight up towards turn 7. I thought for a moment we were going to see a bit of a large incident there, but into the right hand, it looks all nice and sedate for the time being. I think they just about get away with it into turn 8, or do they? Oh no, they just about do. I was worried we were waiting to see an inevitable crash there, but we seem to have avoided it somewhat, and everybody else making their way through. I mean, we have lost a couple of drivers from the leading train, the likes of Robert Jeffries, the likes of Herbert Pineda, but generally speaking, 39 cars covered by less than 30 seconds. It's been a relatively successful start, I'd say, all things considered.
You only had to wait a couple more seconds, Darren. You were going to see the accident there in towards turn 8, and there you go. Herb Pineda has to go back to pit lane after contact in towards turn 8. He joins Robert Jeffries in pit lane, and they still are in the session, but they are getting long repairs. The only other big spinner, I'm afraid, from the opening lap here was Dale Pedersen, who is dropped all the way down the field in the Acura. He's now running in 39th place after qualifying in 9th. Meanwhile, Richard, and this is what happened, excuse me. Did he get hit there by one of the Porsches, maybe? Did he get hit by Jared Keane, or was that somebody else? It was in the... it was a bright yellow Porsche, and bright yellow on the front. Anyway, just spun him around, and I'm not sure who that may have been. I think it was Keane, but I'm not entirely sure. No, Keane is not in a yellow fronted Porsche. So we'll have to try and figure that one out. It was certainly towards the midfield. Sean Stecker is next in line as one of the Porsches. It may have been Jeffries, who's back to pit lane now, but we just don't know for the moment. But anyway, in towards turn 1. And the battles continue on. Jared Keane needs to gain some positions, whether he was in that contact or not, because he's qualified quite a long way down. He's been on the podium already this season. He won't be in the championship fight by the looks of things, but he's looking for a way through, as Colin McKenzie, the new AM leader, is just in behind.
And how impressive has Colin McKenzie been so far this season? Really has been a force to be reckoned with, not just in the AM Championship, but overall as well. I mean, he's 8th in the standings overall coming into this race in the AM class, so really impressive to see. He leads that championship by 24 points, and with the point system that you find down there, he really has to have a bit of a shocking final few rounds to really lose ground away. He's got 45 points back to P3, and really he would need to have quite a couple of crashes, quite frankly, to get himself worried about dropping down to 3rd in the championship. Been a really impressive opening half of the season or so from McKenzie. He's got the gap back to Thomas Rep for the time being as Andrew Ellis goes around. Careful about rejoining the circuit there, but it's been really impressive to see him be able to dominate the field, and he's looking like he's replicating some of that form again tonight.
Absolutely. Side by side on the way up towards it. This is Andrew Ellis, who hits the inside curve at turn 8, and a bit of contact there for one of the Ferraris, who gets his front bumper back again. But Ellis was indeed the one who spun around Dale Pedersen a few moments ago. Now he spun himself around in towards the corner before, so not ideal for him at all. So these guys make their way now around the final corner and onto the front straight again. It's a battle all the way for 22nd position. Or 21st as it is now, really. Warden's already let 3 seconds open up in front to Pete Measure. Warden's in the Ferrari. Just in the Lamborghini further behind is Sam Smeltzer, who went a bit wide there. And Luis Ortiz is just in behind, looking for a way through. Were he going to dive in towards turn 3? No. Instead, it's the Lamborghini going on the low side. That's very weird.
On the exit. Oh, that got very close on the exit. Drivers trying to almost avoid each other on the run up the hill. That could have got a lot tastier than it ended up being on the run towards turn 5. This is Andrew Ellis. A little bit of a slow motion. Does he go all 4 wheels into the air? Let's see. He's going to, clump that inside curve. And 1, 2 off the ground. 3. A bit of a lift. Just about, I think. Maybe a little bit of a load decrease, but Ellis, it's not the fastest line, that's for sure, and you're going to get collected if you do that again.
And he's sat right in the middle of the road, which is not ideal there. And unfortunately has to come back to pit lane afterwards as well. I suspected actually after that contact with the Ferrari that his suspension may have just been bent slightly. Battle for 14th. Oh, and a crash for 14th. That's what's gone on here. Richard Saavedra was dropping down the field. We saw that on the tower on the left-hand side, and it's all gone wrong here. He's missing his front left. He's been hit by one of the McLarens, who was just unsighted here. Oh, and goes straight into him through turn 12. And Saavedra has got no front left wheel, and you'll see from this camera shot here, the front left is already down, and it's not turning either. Look at that. The Michelin's not going anywhere, and so he's going to have a nightmare. Oh, hello, that's grass. Oh, and indeed, he has to get up the hill to return back to pit lane. He was hit by one of the McLarens in the field, and that is going to be likely a lot of damage for them as well, although there isn't any McLaren in pit lane now, so I don't know who that was who hit him, and they've clearly not had that bad damage.
Very slow speed in the grand scheme of things, but still quite a hefty hit to this right to the corner of the car, which you'd imagine would cause a little bit more damage to Ian Southern's car. Let's see for the number 4. I mean, there's no avoiding that. The second he came a little bit too hot into the corner. He was turning. He wasn't going to be able to turn out of it. If he did, he would find himself firmly eating some barrier on the outside of the corner, so stuck between a rock and a hard place, but just about able to make his way through. Seemingly without too much damage. Difficult to say exactly whether he's got a little bit on the car, but not enough to make him come in that lap. Oh, gosh.
Well, yeah, he might have bigger things to worry about here now this lap, though, as Warden goes past him on the way down towards turn 11. That's a lot of McLaren missing there on the front end of that car. I can't believe he's carried on. Maybe he's going to try and carry on to the pit window, which probably isn't that far away, considering we're 10 minutes into the race already, but nearly a third of the way through. But he might not be able to carry on all the way to the pit window, to be honest, given the front end damage that he has got. And indeed, he stays to the right hand side. Careful of following him in there, as now he gets on the brakes and he will do those repairs. So another incident and another one to add to the list, because it has been fairly busy, fairly lively so far. Thomas Rep, meanwhile, getting overtaken by Jay Steffi and not getting any closer to Colin McKenzie, who's jumped to the back of this group. There is Rep in the background. He lost a lot of time, actually, as Jay Steffi overtook him. So the AM lead again for Colin McKenzie is pretty secure.
Yeah, it was about 1.8 seconds, I think, between McKenzie and Rep a couple of laps ago, but with the battling that we saw Steffi had to make his way through and up into P12 overall. That gap has increased to about 4 seconds, so it really is looking safer and safer for Colin McKenzie. And, I mean, depending on what happens here, McKenzie may even still be able to gain a position or two on a couple of pro drivers, just to give himself that extra bit of buffer and gain himself the extra couple of points. One of the things I do like about this championship in the PRL compared to other series you get is that the pro and AM points, well, I like it particularly in the GT3 Fixed Series, is that the pro and AM points are combined, which means that even if you're winning the AM class, if you can move forward, you're gaining yourself points. And that means that there's always the incentive for the AM drivers to keep going and not necessarily rest on their laurels and maybe, let through a few drivers if they're feeling like they're under pressure and don't want to get involved in an incident. So it keeps them involved, it keeps them wanting to move forward. And I do think that's fantastic to see.
Yeah, it is a good thing. I've enjoyed this point system for the last few times around. Although, to be fair, when it was first introduced, from what I remember, at least when it was first introduced in recent memory, it was when the points only went down to 30th place. And back in that season, we had such large fields that the AM drivers were barely scoring any points. The winner would get like 5 points at the end of the day. It was very bizarre. But now that everybody gets points, and indeed more than everybody gets points, top 50, I think, get points these days. It's only 54 entered into the series as a whole. We certainly would be doing well to get 50 into one race. And so it does make it pretty difficult now to score no points unless you DNF. It does provide lots of points opportunities for those AM drivers who are trying to work their way forward. At the moment, 5 of them are in the top 16, although none of them in the top 10 just yet. Not too much in the way of side-by-side going on. That's to be expected. Everybody is waiting for the pit stop phase. 5 minutes time and we'll be at halfway, and in about 10 minutes time everybody will have likely made their only stop of the day.
Yeah, of course, it's not the longest of pit windows in a 35-minute race, but it's a little bit longer, on your Monday. your Thursday nights, particularly in the PRL, even on a Sunday night as well, with the races that hour length. But here, with it being a little bit shorter, and drivers not really wanting to be too different on the strategy, not able to be too different really with the fuel tanks that they're given, it is a narrow pit window, and so I think we're going to see quite a busy pit lane over the course of 2-3 laps in the next 6-7 minutes or so. That's definitely something we're going to have to keep a close eye on. Drivers going wide off the circuit continuously towards the back of that field. As we've seen Jarek and David Bush swap positions, that could be up towards turn 3 and turn 4. But I think it's going to be not enough to see them go down the field, so they kept it nice and clean, that's for sure.
Sully sad down to 4th, but Thurman and Graf have got off to good starts here in the Porsche, and they're getting away from the rest as well. Graf is applying quite a lot of pressure to Brett Thurman at the moment, who, by the way, would be the championship leader if the drop points were to be added now. Be there by 8 points, and there he is in the camera. I wonder what he's got behind him. Do you recognise anything that's going on here? I don't understand.
It's I think that's a band, but I couldn't tell you what that band is if it was a band.
My guess as well.
I think he's got, well, yes. He's got Discord open, I can tell you that much. I can just about see that in the corner of the screen.
Oh, well, it's a good spot, yeah. And I wouldn't have associated that. I'm not enough of a nerd, clearly. He says, well, on Discord right now. Anyway. He's. I don't know why you'd have that open while you're racing, by the way. I guess he's probably chatting to someone while he's going along here. But either way, feels like there could be a better use for that second screen as he's going along here. But clearly not much pressure. He's just trying to stay with Thurman. There's almost not any point in trying to overtake Thurman at the moment. Just prod along behind him, wait for the stops.
Yeah, I think particularly for Graf here, he could try and pressure Thurman, but if he can just stay in this window of being, even half a second to a second behind Brett Thurman, it's a fantastic little window to be in. He's able to gain away that a little bit further each lap from Jason Park, and then of course Ricardo Delgado, I should say. And it means that he's in a better position for the second half of the race, when after the pit stops he can maybe try and push on here. He wouldn't necessarily want to push either, because you don't want to get stuck into traffic here. If you pit early from the leading positions in this race, you're going to get chucked out right into the midst of a battle towards the back end of the top 30, and you can't necessarily afford to be in those positions, and you could be shipping quite a lot of time as well. So maybe just making sure that the fuel is as high as can be, and that he can stay out maybe a little bit longer to mitigate those possible circumstances.
I think we've had our first scheduled pit stop though. Further down, Evander Jonesfeld is now 36th after stopping, and is quarter of a minute off of the back of the pack there, as it's side by side meanwhile between Rep and Fichtner. Round the outside for Jakob Fichtner and the pole sitter in the AM class. All of a sudden Thomas Rep is looking pretty weak in this position now. He's got a good run out of turn 12, and he's back on the inside again here, but surely this is all just allowing Colin McKenzie to get further up the road. Side by side between the two of them, and surely Seb Guffier is going to be enjoying this as well, as Fichtner goes up high. He can't get anywhere. Oh, the Mustang just pulls up right in front of him. Here they go on the front straight. Here comes Fichtner. Here comes Guffier. Doesn't he go 3 wide maybe on the inside line? He's not quite going to manage that. And Fichtner will brake late, and the McLaren on the inside line go through. He brakes too late. And here comes Guffier. There's contact. Oh, no. Contact. Jakob Fichtner goes round, and he's going to be dropping outside the top 20.
And I don't really know how Seb Gautier has managed to scarper his way through there. But for all the world, I felt like he was going to get his rear end collected in the collision, but he's managed to work his way through just about, and he will inherit P2 in that AM class, albeit that gap up to Colin McKenzie now 8 seconds to try and close. It was 2 only about 10 minutes ago. Yeah, it's gone. 24 points is going to grow his championship lead. There's what happened again. I mean, hard to judge really who's at fault. Fichtner and Guthier there went too deep into turn 1. But I'm afraid the Mustang there was a bit careless really in its contact, and Fichtner's the one who goes around. He smashes himself on the side of the other McLaren of... Thomas Rep into the back of him. He smashed himself onto the side of Seb Guthier there, and that's done him quite a lot of damage, at least visually. It's surprising how little damage it did to the 66. Yeah, I mean... a weird moment as well. It did look like for all the world that all 3 were going to get collected, but for Seb Gautier to pretty much get through scot-free there, I think he's going to be absolutely delighted. Thomas Rep is Not going to be overly impressed with everything that occurred there, but he's still in the battle. He's not dropped down the order too much, unlike Jakob Fichtner, who is now outside, well, in 25th, not quite outside the top 25, but a lot further down the order in terms of the time loss that he had to face, and the front end of that car also not looking ideal after the incident as well. So not really exactly what Fichtner was looking for. It looked like he had the move done, and then the contact, and then just about the spin. Lucky that he wasn't collected more, really, by others coming through, because it's a difficult part of the racetrack to get stuck in.
Yeah, it is. Well, there's not many easy places, to be fair, around here, but yeah, that was Sean Stecker going very wide, and Pete Measure will go through very easy. Stecker's plummeting through the field. There's Walden right behind Pete Measure in the battle for 16th place. All of a sudden, Walden is not at the front of a queue, which will be a bit of a change for him. Stecker in the background loses lots of these places. This is the battle for 16th place then. Pete Measure at the head of it, ahead of Walden, then Luke Davis, then Louis Ortiz, who is up 12 positions so far in this race. That is the most of anybody apart from Regan Chandler, who is up 13. Out of turn 10 they go, and another of those half chances here maybe for Walden. He's going to have to be brave on the brakes if he wants to make a move down here, and he won't manage it, as we've crossed halfway, by the way, in the carnage.
Yeah, it creeps up on you quite quickly in the fixed series, only of course the 35 minutes that we do go racing, so that does appear kind of from the blind side, but we are now in the second half of the race, meaning that pit stops are really start to be incoming soon for all of these drivers, as they won't want to run until the final minute or two, albeit they probably would if they could, quite frankly, just to make sure they don't get involved in too much of the traffic. No one wanting to get involved in traffic means that the guys at the front have to extend even longer than they otherwise would, and we'll have to see if they can do. Graf is pressuring Brett Thurman a little bit more, but is that a symptom of Brett Thurman stepping off the pace a little bit, or is that the case of Tyler Graf increasing? We'll have to try and wait and see if Tyler Graf goes for a move, but Jason Park is particularly arriving on the scene at any rate of knots, but it's nice at least that we have these two in the front of the field that at least give us the hope of maybe battle for the race win.
Yeah, I think it's going to be settled at the pit stops, to be honest, so it is going to be a battle of sorts. I'd be surprised if they're still this nose to tail with 5 minutes to go, but we'll see as they get as close as they can to clipping the gravel, and in some cases they do, through the left-hander of turn 12 there. Now through the right-hander of 13 for the final corner, the banked final turn. Puts them onto the front straight. Do any of them blink this time? You see, oh, that is surely illegal. Tyler Graf there knew he was going to do whatever Brett Thurman didn't do, and because Thurman stayed so close to the inside, he thought he was going to pit lane, and surely Graf has decided to basically do what Thurman didn't. There's the look, raise of the eyebrows. Dear oh dear, he smashes something as well. He's not pleased with himself. Well, this is a race-defining moment perhaps for Tyler Graf.
Yeah, coming off the corner late, coming into the pit lane too late, going all
He might have sped.
well, from inside the white line. Oh no, and that's that
I think he sped
because that's a separate incident entirely as well.
Or has he got a penalty for an unsafe pit entry? Is that even possible? He is furious with himself. There's your race. There is the battle settled at the front of the field, unless Jason Park can have a much shorter stop. There goes Thomas Rep out the pit lane. Walden. They're all coming out here ahead of Tyler Graf. Look at this. Tyler Graf with a great chance to at least score a podium today. Has seen it all go away. Look at the emotion, completely devoid of any emotion at the moment, because he's so furious with himself. Out of the pit lane exit. He's got to refocus now and continue on in the race, but goodness me, he's angry with himself.
Yeah, he's not going to be happy all the way to the end, I'm sure. Let's see if he how far he's able to recover during this race. I mean, he's P29 on the exit of the pit lane. Let's see
God, what is it with these lot?
Word. They're pushing the boundaries at a part of the race that you can't really push too much.
Goodness me. I don't know what Ricardo Delgado was doing there. Why would you risk that when you're championship leader? Well, that's pretty awkward. Someone's having a long stop. Matt Sheriff is having a long stop in his pit box. Sheriff, by the way, before the race said he's having some technical problems. Let's see how far I can come back through the field. Well, unfortunately, the answer is not very far. In fact, he's down 7, is Sheriff, because of a very, very long stop indeed. I think he's trying to get prepared so he can get some points here this afternoon, but let's see. Now then, have a look at this. Tyler Graf sticks to the left and then comes into pit lane. It wasn't speeding, he slowed down there in my mind, so it must have been for an unsafe entry.
Poorly, because there's no other, there isn't anything wrong else with that VT that we've just seen. So yeah, Tyler Graf, it can be fine margins. That was not quite fine. That was quite a big cut off that white line. But I did notice actually off of that corner, Brett Thurman did go a little bit closer to that white line, almost clearly trying to duke out Tyler Graf, and it worked perfectly because the cycle games have given him a large advantage.
Absolutely. That's why you always, if you're thinking about coming in or not, you always stick to the right-hand side there, because you think, you know, you can back out. If you go in initially, you can back out and cross the white line that way. You can't do it the other way, though, if you're coming in. Meanwhile, Neil Alexander has spun another one of the Ferraris and stopped. Oh, no, don't stop there. I get that he's trying to redress the position, but goodness me, don't stop in the middle of the circuit.
Yeah, not what we want to be, especially a circuit with the characteristics as this. But it now seems that everybody and their ground have made it down pit road, because this is as busy as it's going to get. All of the top 11 coming in. Brett Thurman will get back out to the lead. Jason Park will get out to P2. Really busy now.
Trickett is out. Oh, that was close for Felix Feliz, nearly getting into the back of Trickett and then the wall. But Trickett's in the top 5 now. That's a good return for him. Felix Feliz has lost a couple of places. Very short stop from Trickett. 8.5 in the box. That's 1.7 quicker than Feliz, and it's got him ahead. So he's up 1 place. Sully sat down 2, as we saw. That came off the start, though. Jason Park is still second. Ricardo Delgado still third. 1.2 seconds. At least he's on the podium. 3 wide out the pit lane here. Be careful as they squeeze into turn 2. Thomas Repp is overtaken by Waldo Walden. Dave Peterson getting involved as well. But that's Thomas Repp on the very inside line of the corner. And he's going to get freight train now with loads of people getting a better exit. Walden's in the middle of the road. Not sure what he's doing. Oh, side-to-side contact. Through the sweepers they go. Through the high-speed corners on this circuit, they manage to just about squeeze themselves. Still, Walden and Messier go side by side. Pete Messier is up to 3rd in the AM class, is he? In towards turn 8, and he's got it. With finally Walden sticking back to the inside, and no, Messier holds on to 13th. Goodness me. What a lively group this is.
Yeah, and right back down the inside, down into turn 9 as well, looking to try and find the move around the outside at turn 10. Got to hook it all the way through there. He'll be able to have the prerogative on when to get the power down on the exit, so should have a slight advantage over Dave Pedersen. But as they get towards the stadium section, it will be Thomas Repp who holds that advantage, and they will single file their way out into the stadium section. While all that was going on, it is still a case of being stuck down in P22 for Tyler Graf right now. It's not necessarily been the race in the end that he was hoping for. He's nearly 40 seconds off of Brett Thurman. Massive hit in terms of the penalty in the pit lane, and he's going to be right out of the contention, and a big points drop for him in this race.
Absolutely. Brett Thurman is moving ahead in this championship. It would only be his 4th win in the history of the PRL, by the way, if he were to be able to take this victory, and he's got half of those in this season if he can. Peterson, meanwhile, down the inside of Repp, now on the outside line of Thomas Repp is Luke Davis, and he's going to get through as well. So Repp is getting his ears boxed completely here, and Davis is now through. Repp is now under pressure from Louis Ortiz in the Corvette, who's coming up to the back of him now as well. Well, this, for a circuit which we've been saying, very difficult to overtake on, sometimes very difficult to get any excitement. This group is certainly providing it at the moment.
It is a circuit where if you can start to get a little bit of side-by-side action going, then it can start to run. We saw that on the exit from turn 3 all the way into turn 10, pretty much into turn 11. You can go side-by-side here. It's just really the risk of sending it somewhere is too great for many to try. But the second you get that initial not quite conflict, but the initial side-by-side action through particularly the middle sector, it can run and run and run, and we are seeing that in this group, which is fantastic to see. And it is great to see that they are trying at least to make some of these moves work in the final 8 minutes of the race. There's no reverse grid or anything like that to try and worry about after the end of the 8 minutes here. So every position you can gain will get you some points, and everybody scrapping over just an extra point or two, which is exactly what we want to be seeing.
Yeah, it certainly is. 7 minutes still to go, and there's still plenty of battles to watch out for. Ross Sortino's a name we haven't mentioned all day, pretty much, and he's up to 7th place here in the number 20. Started in 13th, just outside the top 10. And he's got himself ahead of Jared Keane here, who's got himself ahead of some people who've dropped down and then lost positions to people who've been moving through the field. Ross Sortino, though, apparently is black flagged. I'm not sure what for, but I've been told he's been black flagged. Incident limit, I guess. I'd be surprised about that around this circuit. No idea on that at the moment, but maybe he will lose 7th place in that case.
Yeah, bit of a funny one. We'll see what's happening with Ross Sortino. The other thing that's slightly confusing about Ross Sortino is he has those purple numbers on the car.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
An AM driver. I think he's always been a pro driver, hasn't he? So updated almost the decals, possibly.
He's always been a pro. Yeah. He only finished his first race last week, by the way. He's down in 45th in the standings. He's been having an unmitigated disaster, and this is not really helping. We're hearing it's for something in the pit lane. Maybe this will shed some light. That didn't look too bad to me, but whoa, it's quite quick, but okay. It didn't look too bad to me. That entry there, all the speed looked all right. I suspect, because I would have thought anything on the way in there, including speeding and the white line violation, that would be served in the pit stop. This suggests to me that it was on the exit, either crossing the white line in the exit or speeding in the exit.
Yeah, is it speeding on the exit? Maybe it was a case of he crossed the white line on exit. Could that be it?
Yeah, I'm thinking that.
I'd say that's probably the safest bet.
He received it before pit exit, which suggests speeding to me. Sometimes drivers take their pit limiter off and they forget to turn it off again and just accelerate up to humongous speed in the pit lane. But I would have thought if it happened before he stopped in his box, he would have served it in his box first time round, but maybe that's not true. It happened at least while he was in the pit lane. Don't really have any information on whether it was before he came to a stop in pit lane or afterwards, because then we're getting quite into the detail that we don't really have there. So that's going to be a mystery, I think. It's going to remain a mystery for the remainder of this race, but disappointing for him because he'd made a good run of that up inside the top 10. Well, let's see.
Please Colin McKenzie too much.
Oh, sorry, you weren't coming through on my end there. I don't know if that was just me.
Sorry.
I think we're all right now. Unless you just weren't talking to me.
Well, yeah,
it's entirely possible.
No, I'm silly. No, all I'm saying is that the fact that Colin McKenzie has a 12-second gap back to Seb Gauthier, but it's only a 2-position difference, won't please him too much because it won't be a big points gain, despite the fact that he's been that much further ahead towards the back end of the race. I mean, if Colin McKenzie was where Seb Gauthier is, and Seb Gauthier was another 13 seconds back, Gauthier would be another 10 positions down the middle as Tyler Graf tries to fight his way through the field.
Yeah, you're right about that. Graf now on the outside line here, and he's surely going to get the position now, side by side, right round the outside of Nikos Stanidakis, and he gets the position. There you go, through into 19th. Yeah, you're right about that, by the way. And in terms of the championship, Seb Gauthier is not really the one we're going to be looking at. It's going to be Pete Medja, but your point still stands. Medja's 17 seconds behind him today, but only losing 3 points.
Yeah, and I think that will not necessarily please Colin McKenzie overly, but I mean, he's still gaining points, isn't he? So there's always, that silver lining to be had in that he's gaining anyway. He's winning the race in the AM class, so there's positives to be drawn there. It just has been such an impressive season up to this point from Colin McKenzie. It just continues to get better and better. He just needs to keep his consistency up, and he may feel a little bit more confident going into the final couple of rounds of the season.
Thomas Rep has got a bit of damage on the front end of that Mustang, and I don't remember seeing that before, unless I'm mistaken. So he's going to be a bit of a sitting duck late on. Regan Chandler's right behind him. There he is. Look at the front right. Doesn't look quite right, that Mustang at the moment on the front end. The front right tyre is a bit more exposed than it should be. And he's going to be, as I say, a sitting duck here late on. Regan Chandler, David Morse and Tyler Graf are all in a train behind him. Meanwhile, Messier defending from Warden. These are the kind of points that Messier needs to hang on to. At the moment, losing just the 3 to Mackenzie. The gap will be 27 points in favour of Mackenzie by the end of the day if he hangs on to 12.
Yeah, really good move for Pete Messier. As who is that off of the road? It's Sam Smeltzer who's dropping down the field next to the turn 1. Finds the escape road though. Enough for him. It means that he won't lose, more time than he did in the end. But he's going to be feeling a little bit lonely in the final couple of minutes of the race. No one around him on the circuit.
Very nicely done. That's exactly the kind of runoff you should have, by the way. Loads of gravel on the edge of the circuit and then a little bit of a road on the outside just to make sure you can get back into the circuit and not beat yourself in the gravel in real life. He's on an impossibly tight line there. How he thought that was ever going to work, I'm not sure. But then he finds this very neat little access road. There you go. Have a bit of that. Back onto the circuit all fine. Not in front of anybody else. That's a very good way of doing runoff. There you go. I like that.
Yeah, it's a couple of the, so you do like some of the remodelling. It's not all bad news.
Like that bit, yeah.
It's good to see. I think that probably should be implemented a little bit more around some circuits because it does seem to work quite nicely at Zandvoort when we do see racing here. And it's working nicely for Sam Smeltzer as well. But I'm not too sure what he thought was going to happen on that inside line. It was almost like he thought he was turning left into that corner because he was pretty much kissing the the inside barrier.
Yeah. There you are, side by side between Phillips Feliz and Andrew Trickett. Oh, up over the curb on the inside. Trickett there had his front wheels off the ground. I was very concerned he was going to go straight on into the side of Feliz, but he's just about got away with that. And these guys, by the way, are tearing towards the end of this race. Are we going to squeeze in the 23rd lap or not with just over 30 seconds remaining as Brett Furman continues his pace at the front of the race? He's being caught by Jason Park, but not quite quickly enough.
Yeah, it looks like it's under control for the time being. I think, it's going to be close. How Thurman's able to control the ending of this race with only 20 seconds to go. It has been a great drive from him, leading from start to this point. Not quite the finish yet. I don't want to, put the onus on him, but it has been a fantastic drive from him. And again, a good drive.
Seconds to go, and the checker flag will fly. Brett Thurman, after just 22 laps here at Zandvoort, will take the checker flag, and he'll take round 5 of the PRL GT3 Fixed Series, going along with the championship lead as well in our 4-race run to home. Jason Park just in second place in the end, as further around the back, Colin McKenzie takes another win in the AM class. He will see his lead reduce once the drop points are accounted for at the end of this week. However, his championship lead will be well over 10 points over Pete Messier as long as he hangs on to 12th place. It looks like he's done a good defensive job here in the last few laps to hang on. It's going to be a drag race. Walden's going to be alongside him. It will be a photo, but Messier will just about take 12th.
Yeah, Messier, after a great drive to get onto the podium in terms of that AM class, will be pleased. Colin McKenzie, though, will be absolutely overjoyed, I'm sure, with the race win. Tyler Graf, I think, trying to, finish his session as quickly as he possibly can after the mistake that he made into the pit lane. But Brett Thurman, again, it's not his first win of the season. It's his second win of the season after the opening round, but a couple of podiums last couple of weeks. It has been coming again for him.
Certainly has. And with Delgado down in third, the gap will increase between the two of them by another 5 points, but we'll talk about that in a second. Furman wins here at Zandvoort ahead of Jason Park, who won last week, second this week. Good couple of weeks for him. Ricardo Delgado is on the podium again in third, ahead of Sully Sad and Felix Feliz, then Andrew Trickett and Jared Keane to make it 5 Porsches in the top 7. David Busterford is in 8th place ahead of Colin McKenzie, who finishes 9th as the AM winner ahead of Jay Steffi. 11th place was Seb Guttier, despite being hit on the side by Thomas who was it earlier on, I can't remember, but he survives and finishes 11th then of Pete Messier, who's on the podium in the AMs, just ahead of Warden, who he held off towards the end. Steve Peterson and Luke Davis ran at the top 15, with Thomas Rep involved in big battles throughout that one. He held off Regan Chandler, Tyler Graf, who had that drop back after the pit stop, David Morse and Nikos Zanidakis rounding out the top 20. Ross Sortino with that black flag dropped to 21st ahead of Dale Pedersen, who spun on the opening lap. Sam Smeltzer finished 23rd ahead of Kevin Berklis and Amanda Jonesfeld, who made the first stop of that race. That was scheduled to stop, that is. Louis Ortiz finished 22nd. DeChristopher Ryan's the first driver 1 minute or more back. Nick Bruno used the Mustang this week to finish in 28th ahead of Jakob Fichtner and Neil Alexander in the top 30. Scott Jeffries was 31st, and Sean Murphy, who started from the very back and didn't qualify. Ian Cabana, J.D. Jensen and Sean Stacker managed to finish on the lead lap, with Aaron Sunday just going one down towards the end. Ian Southern recovered from hitting somebody through turn 12 to finish in 2 laps down, 37th. Andrew Ellis ended up retiring from that race. I think he did cross the line, actually, 4 laps down. Match Sheriff Richard Cerveja certainly did not cross the line. Neither did Herbert Pineda, Robert Jeffries or Sean Mulholland, who didn't even take the start of that race, and hence why he's not on our results screen there. Let's have a chat to Brett Furman, who has taken another win this season. Congratulations, Brett, on the win here at Zandvoort this time around. Just how was the Porsche feeling around here? It certainly looked like a strong car.
Oh, it definitely was the weapon this week, and something. It's a big workout here.
I can imagine so. I mean, after your finishing down the field in Daytona, have you sort of seen yourself as a championship leader these last couple of weeks? Because if you account the drop weekend, as we're about to, you are actually quite a few points ahead of Delgado at the front. So what have you read of this championship situation so far before the drop week's actually applied?
Well, I've got my fingers crossed and just keep working on it. And hopefully in the end, I'll bring a fight to the last race, or hopefully before.
Yeah, well, yeah, quite. We've got 4 more weeks to go, so good luck with those. Thanks very much for coming to have a chat with us, and congratulations on the win tonight.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thanks to my teammates and Jared help getting me ready for these races. Without their support, I wouldn't be here. So thank you.
Absolutely. Brett Furman there, the winner here tonight at Zandvoort in the PRL GT3 Fixed Series. Ricardo Delgado finished in 3rd place here tonight and can also chat to us now. Welcome in, Ricardo. Good to have you with us as well. 3rd place for you on this occasion. What were you expecting from this race here at Zandvoort? You were the best placed of the Corvettes, and another podium for you. What were you expecting, though, at the start of the day?
Well, I knew this track definitely dominated by Porsche. I know it was going to be a hard race for me on the Corvette, but and I think I had a little bit more pace than what I showed, but I was definitely held at the start by Sully, who basically slept on the race start, and that dictated the race once I dropped it to P5. It's a difficult track to overtake. I had more pace than him. Show him the nose, try to place some pressure on it, but there is definitely no place for passing here.
Yeah, it is certainly very difficult. What about the rest of the season, though, in terms of the championship? You're over 10 points when the drop weeks are applied behind Brett Furman. Now, it looks like it might be between you two for the championship. How do you feel about that going into the next few rounds?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a hard one, overcoming 10 points by the penalty that I got, but we'll try.
We'll see how it goes. Congratulations, finish on the podium here tonight, and thanks for coming to chat to us as well.
Thanks, guys. Always a pleasure. Have a good one.
Thanks very much, Ricardo Delgado there in 3rd place tonight, ahead of Colin McKenzie, who takes another AM win. Congratulations on the win again, Colin. You extend your championship margin again, but how was the race generally, finishing inside the top 10 overall? Or just outside, I should say.
It was good. I mean, I was a little excited after qualifying. There were a couple of AMs around me. I thought we were going to have a good race, but, lo and behold, a little do-to-do lap 1 that I was able to kind of get through it, and that just opened up the lead. So at that point, it was kind of just hanging on and making sure I just kept the gap.
Are you really at that stage in the season now where you are sort of looking for other AM drivers to come and fight you now?
I wouldn't necessarily say that, just because you got to fight for your points everywhere, especially in this series without split points. It would be nice if some AMs were up there, with me, but at the end of the day, I can't control what happens. So,
no, certainly. At least you had some competition in qualifying today, that's for sure, in the AM field. But anyway, we'll see how it goes next week at Road Atlanta. But for now, thanks for coming to chat to us, and we'll see you again at Road Atlanta, as I say.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for what you do.
Thanks very much, Colin McKenzie, the winner of the AMS again. He is so successful in that class, the PRL GT3 Fixed Series. Well, that's it for the fixed version of this championship, and we are almost ready to go with the open setup here in a few moments' time. 40 more minutes of racing here coming from Zandvoort in a few moments' time. PRL GT3 Sprint Series gets underway. Zandvoort ready again for another 40 minutes of racing as the PRL GT3 Sprint Series comes to town. Just a few minutes remaining in the qualifying session at the moment as we have a look at the schedule and the standings before we get to that here in a few moments. It is close again in the GT3 Sprint Series. Guillaume Levesque leading by just 10 points ahead of Juan Lemus and Elliot Patinski, who's gone 2 for 2 in the last 2 weeks to bring himself just 12 points behind. Chris Peets and Kevin Tenier rounding out the top 5 with Nick Ludeke just outside it. Upman Aloui, Sim Montero, who's currently topping the times in qualifying. Kevin Simpson and Christian Sternberg round out the pro standings. In the AMS, Kevin Kiernitz is leading by just 2 points ahead of Blake Ziti, with Devon Brock in the top 3. Mark Gillett and Gavin Ammerman round out the top 5, with Jermaine Warren and Marshall Scare tied on 6th place points. Tina Bella and Justin Welsh round out the final drivers who have actually scored points here this season. In the teams, Field and Edge Racing take charge now with Patinski's 2 wins in 2, 4 points ahead of Apex Racing Team and Advanced Motorsports, with SimCity Racing, Tmima Racing Team, Mexico GP and Team PTZ just falling a little bit further away, although by no means out of it. SCR3 are in 6th, but Soulpack Precision Racing Gold. The other SimCity Racing Team is in 8th place out of SRTE, and the Vimmer Racing Team, Hestegia, whatever that means, is in 10th place here in the team's standings. Just a couple of minutes remaining in qualifying, just less, and he said that the Porsches are going to be strong. Again, Simon Terrio, the most high profile of them, is up towards the front and he's taking pole at the moment.
Yeah, it seems like we may get a bit of that synergy once again with the Porsches going well this evening. Ryan Puchtel looking to try and join him towards the front of the field at the moment as he comes in towards the stadium section. Just a couple more corners to go in that. There we go. Into that dark liveried car. I was going to say light liveried car. Very much not the case as he comes into the final couple of corners in his number 21. About 3/10 off at the moment. Wide though, that's not going to help him out too much, you'd say. And I can't imagine this is going to be much of an improvement, if at all.
No, SimCity Racing in their traditional black and lime green again. Puchtel makes his way towards the line. He will stay where he is with that. It's Peter Nobwell in the same team. Pulls into pit lane. Think he won a race last season, Peter Nobwell. Bit of a surprise winner on that occasion. Maybe not, I can't really remember, but maybe I'm misremembering. It's certainly someone from SimCity Racing was able to manage it last season. Kevin Simpson makes his way towards the line at the moment. He is in 9th place in the standings, by the way. This is a long way back for Simpson in 16th at the moment. Can he improve with this? That time, certainly not. He's got one more chance at this, and he needs to do better.
I mean, opportunities are pretty much at 0 now. It's, well, 1, quite frankly, and needs to get it done now, if at all. I think a lot of these guys know that this is their last chance. Kevin Oh yeah, he's trying to work his way to the front of the field in his yellow and black entry. I mean, he's only about 5 thousandths back on David Mendonca. We've seen Kevin be involved in these close battles in qualifying and not come out on the right side of them, hoping, well, he'll be hoping that he can change that fate tonight, but this has got to be the lap as he comes out of the final corner.
Up towards the line. Can he go any quicker? That looks decent for Denoyer. Is it any better? No, it's not really. The 9th place for him. He will stay just on the lower parts of the top 10. Chris Beach can't go any quicker. He'll be disappointed with that, knowing the speed of the Porsche. It's Acura, who are 2nd and 3rd with Alberto Diaz and Elliot Brzezinski. Uthman Alaoui is in 4th place at the moment. Guillaume Levesque at the moment is not here, so he will be taking his drop week, which is, to be fair, still equivalent to a 6th place finish. So I can't imagine he'll be too disappointed. But look at this performance in the AM class. Blake Ziti is taken charge here in 11th place. He's only to overcome that 2-point deficit to Kevin Kienitz, who's currently leading the championship.
Yeah, flexing the muscles that we've seen from Blake in the opening round back at Long Beach. Had absolutely dominant, was dominant in the AM class that night. Doing a similar job here at Zandvoort, really putting a bit of distance between himself and anybody else. It's not the right line through the final meaningful corner, though, as he will run through the banking. Let's see if this is an improvement. I don't think it will be. He'll come into the pit lane, but he won't mind too much to be in P11 overall on the race start as an AM driver, something you don't often see in this Sprint Series.
And he won't mind the practice of pit entry as well, based on what we've just seen. Aidan Young makes his way over the line. That's surely improvement. Not really. 29th for Aidan Young. It's a huge surprise for him. Huge surprise. He's a long way back. He's got some work to do in this race, that is for sure. Who else is still out there? Nobody. That is it. 38 have set times. We'll see whether Jason Allen actually emerges for the race start, but he hasn't set a time. Let's have a look at those who have, though, with the rundown of the starting grid. And it's Simon Theriault who takes pole position here in the Porsche. Man currently 8th place in the championship, taking his 2nd pole of the season. Alberto Diaz is alongside him with Elliot Brzezinski, the winner of the last 2 weeks, in 3rd, ahead of Uthman Alaoui, who is 4th in the Ferrari. Then it's Ryan Puchtel and Chris Beach to round out the 3 SimCity racing cars in a row. Christian Steenberger, the first of the PGZs, is in 7th, then of Emmett Lindqvist, with Kevin Donier, Steenberg's teammate, in 9th, then David Mendonca rounding out the top 10. Blake Ziti is the amp pole sitter in 11th, then of Antoine Lasserit in 12th. Corbin Lenaway is in 13th, then of Peter Nobwell, then Matthew Jadwick and Kevin Simpson a long way back in 16th. Steve Baker 17th, and of Nick Ludecki, who's also quite a long way back in that car. Miko Ango Fonseca and Marc-Andre Garon round out the top 20, with Nicholas Mazet and Matthew Biseglia in 22nd. Noah Anderson and Joshua Spears share row 12 with 2 Porsches, Daniel Haynes and Austin Cobb. And at row 13, at Devin Brock and Kevin Kienitz, the AM championship leader, 17 positions behind his nearest rival. Aidan Young is a long way back in 29th, just ahead of Jermaine Warren, who is 30th. Just outside the top 30 is Mark Elliott and Ethan Bass. Gavin Ammerman and Dino Vella share row 17 of Sean Carmody and William Fenson, former Fixed Series driver, just ahead of Marcel Scare and Kevin Blankenship. Jacob Blankenship, who is in 38th. I can't read, apparently. And that is your grid of those who set times. On board with, not Elliot Brzezinski. This, of course, is going to be the pole sitter eventually. Simon Theriault set the pole lap, but looks like we're going to be on board with Elliot Brzezinski for a little bit of a look at the circuit in the Acura this time around, and they're probably the closest manufacturer, to be honest, to actually challenging Simon Theriault at the front.
Yeah, and it's good to see that Brzezinski's had a bit of a resurgence this season. Of course, was right up towards the sharp end of the championship at the start of last season, the back end of 2024, but then dropped away as the season wore on. But still, he is right there and in the mix at the moment in the championship, which is what we want to be seeing. And it's great to see from him and from the Phil Denez team, the likes of himself and his teammate Jaden Conroy and Nick Ludecki were right up there towards the front of the field. I think they were leading the championship by quite some distance after 2 or 3 rounds last last season, but it regressed somewhat, and through came Terrio and of course his teammate, whose name eludes me in the moment. But it's great to see them having a bit of a resurgence throughout this season, and good to see them finally towards the front again.
Tyler Graff in YouTube chat says it was a fun battle though. I guess he's getting over the disappointment of the last round. Commiserations. Do tell us what the penalty actually was at the end there, by the way, Tyler, if you can, because it was there's multiple options for us. We're guessing it was the pit lane entry line, but we're not entirely sure for the moment. Elliot Brzezinski makes his way over the line, and there you have it. That is a hot lap around here at Zandvoort in a manufacturer that's not a Porsche, as we saw a little bit earlier on. Simon Terrio has taken the pole position here, and you get the feeling, the fact he's down in 8th place in the standings at the moment, and he's 48 points behind, even if he'll gain about 20 of those back with a drop week. He's got to put in a big performance here in round 5. That's set himself up for those final 4 rounds if he wants to have a go at this championship.
Yeah, and you're going to have to start setting yourself up for it now if you're going to be wanting to make a charge in the final couple of weeks. Not the longest amount of time left to really establish yourself in the battles for the championship. But I think drivers still will back themselves to maybe get a good result here, maybe a good result next week as well at Road Atlanta, and get themselves right into contention. But with the standings that we have at the moment, of course, in that Pro Championship, only 4 or 5 drivers inside the top, well, within 30 points. Of course, that will change when the drop rounds are applied. But for the time being, like Levesque, Lemieux, Brzezinski fighting it out near the front for the time being, and their drop rounds are pretty hefty point tallies. So you wouldn't imagine they're going to drop too far away tonight, regardless of where they finish.
Well, Levesque and Lemieux are going to score whatever their lowest score is at the moment. They're having a DNS here today, the both of them, so I wonder how that affects their seasons here, and maybe everybody else as well. Elliot Brzezinski is the best placed driver in this championship who's even competing today, so I do wonder massively what this is actually going to be like for him. If he can win again, he'll be right up with Levesque when his drop week is applied. A couple of points behind, maybe. If he can finish at least in the top 5, he will gain points on Levesque and Lemieux in the points. So very interesting prospect and opportunity really for Elliot Brzezinski, who's not racing against his rivals.
Yeah, I think coming into this race then, if Brzezinski dropping his lowest round, which would be 43 points, would mean that he would be 55 points back from Levesque. And, if he's able to win tonight, that would be all 55 points he so requires. So we could find ourselves into a championship margin, even if he finishes in second, quite frankly, into a championship margin going into next week of only a point or 2, which could set us up absolutely beautifully for the run-in towards the start of March and the end of the season. So, really, we are in a good position for Juan Lemieux as well. He will stay on that 192 points and will stay, therefore, 10 points behind Guillaume Levesque. Just a case of Elliot Brzezinski going to catch up, but he would have to score 46 points to overtake Juan Lemieux tonight, but I think he'd back himself to do that from the position that he's going to be starting in.
It's going to be a very interesting evening, very important one for Brzezinski, that's for sure. Just to remind you, by the way, the remaining rounds of this season come from Road Atlanta, Donington, Mount Panorama and the Hockenheimring. So 2 of those 4, by the way, have chances of rain. Only 13% chance at Donington Park. That does seem unlikely, to be fair, but a flip of a coin at Hockenheim, and from what we saw at Jerez, it's going to be a dramatic and fascinating end to the season if it does rain.
What a way to end the season it would be with precipitation, towards the end of the season with precipitation in the air. Always throws up something different, and it makes the drivers have to keep guessing. They're on their toes constantly, and it's probably not fun from inside the cockpit. Definitely a lot more fun for us up here for what should hopefully be a thrilling ending to the season in what has been a great championship so far. Mind you, we've already had so far this season that race at Daytona with the winning margin of 0.000. I don't quite know how we're even going to get better than that. We're trying, that's for sure.
Yeah, how many decimal places did we get to in the end down there? I can't remember now.
I think it was 4.
Yeah, something along those lines. By the way, yeah, it was an unsafe pit entry, by the way, for Tyler Graff. So that is that is something to be watched out for. I haven't seen one of those for quite some time. They're really track conditions. 7:15 in the evening here for the Sprint Series. That's a bit later than what I was expecting, to be honest, in the session, but never mind. Means that we're ending about 8 p.m. in April. It does somehow feel lighter than the Fixed Series was. Some of the overcast conditions have gone away, but then it's pretty windy as well, 22 miles an hour. But not very warm. The drivers will be pleased about that because the tyres do take a bit of a beating around here anyway.
Unsurprising that it's a little bit windy, of course, as I'm sure you know, Ewan. Prevailing wind coming from the North Sea, so much to stop that whistling wind coming and hitting the circuit. It will get a little bit gentler, I'd say, up towards this top end of the circuit. The dunes providing a little bit of cover, but definitely down in that final corner, down the front straight, it's going to be a tad windy for these drivers to be contending with, but it's somewhat of a nice feeling to this race. Not quite as dark as the Fixed Series was. At least we get a bit of a sunset feel. It's not going to help the drivers into some of the corners, though, and the braking zones could become a little bit trickier if they've got the sun directly in their eyes.
Yeah. I didn't know the prevailing wind, by the way, is from the North Sea, but it does make sense now you've said it. We are very close to the coast, as we've already talked about in this broadcast, here in the sand dunes of Zandvoort. Drivers just weaving around a little bit here, try and get what temperature they can into their tyres. It seems that 37 of them got underway. Jacob Blankenship didn't, for whatever reason, and Jason Allen is still down at the back, having not gotten ready yet to take the start either, so I wonder whether they are going to be on the grid at all here for this race. They might not be, unfortunately. We will see when we get underway, of course. Terrio versus Diaz, it's going to be on the run towards turn number 1. And a very important run it is going to be as well. Ricardo Delgado, who was just talking to us from the Fixed Series, that he got stuck behind a slow starter through the start of the race in the Fixed Series, and that kind of affected his whole race. So this is very important stuff.
Yeah, you've got to make sure that you're in the right position at the right time here as you come into the final few corners. The concertina effect that will be felt, as we did see in the Fixed Series, down here at the stadium section. Let's see if that can be mitigated. But as they make their way through, Terrio is going to have the advantage. He's not quite got his teammate Trepanier like he had last season to support him and support each other. He's doing it somewhat alone to start 2025, but you'd rather be alone at the front than as a duo starting from the back of the field. So let's see what he can do off the start.
It's Porsche, Acura, Ferrari. Porsche. There's a distinct look to the front of the field as the manufacturers that are prevailing show themselves at the front. Brzezinski, the winner of the last 2 weeks in the red, green and white Acura on row 2 there on the inside line. Can he maybe use something at the start here? You can see him just dragging the brakes there before the start, just in behind Terrio, who's now in control of the field. He's just slowed it all down here to let the pace car pull in, and he's presumably trying to open this up early. But although Diaz is not going to let him do that, almost squeezing him to the inside line. There's a few jumpers early on. Oh, and a few just having to weave out the way there as the green flag now does wave. Diaz was sleeping. Oh, dearie me. He's going backwards here. 3 wide in towards turn 1. It's going to be into second place, Brzezinski, and round the outside into third for Alois in the Ferrari. Can he get all the way round there? He's going to need to get clear by turn 3, and he does. The top 6 or so, 6 or 7, all single file, by the way, in towards turn 3 for the first time. They all know where they need to be, and Simon Terrio has executed the start very well indeed to hold on to the lead as we've got spinners, and Aidan Young seems to be one of them again. Or is his teammate? It's his teammate, sorry.
Line. Ooh, that means Aidan Young's going to be able to pick his way through. Maybe a little bit more off of the start, but really disappointing at turn 7. That's high speed. Can they all avoid? No, this guy is continually going around, and I think 4 or 5 of them off the road there.
What is going on in the start there? Ryan Puctel is also off the road there. He's in the Porsche. You can just see pulling off to the side. It was Antoine Lacherit in the Audi who had gone for the spin out of turn 3, by the way, along with one of the other Porsches that was down the field. So a messy start down the back. We'll have a look at some replays a little bit later on, but Terrio's executed the start well. Eda Brzezinski, then Alois. Further down the field, Blake Ziti has gone off the road, and these guys are all pros here in this midfield. Nick Ludeke is right in the back of the pack here. He's just got past Steve Baker.
Oh, and he'll get past David Mendonca as well, as Mendonca is around and trying to recover off of the road, or almost trying to get it back into, or reverse it into some kind of gap there. But either way, he will be back onto the circuit just a lot further down. Ledecky, though, going wide. Steve Baker on the inside line. Steve Baker going to have a much better run off of the corner. I don't know if that's a planned line for Ledecky or whether he just drifted up wide, but Steve Baker is through. Fonseca, I should say, is getting past turn one. Oh, my word, that's too late. That's far too late. And off the road goes Stadniuk.
That was way too late on the brakes. Oh, what a spin! It's a big spin for Baker, is it? Or Mazza, Nicholas Mazza, who's gone round. Baker's still in here, but what a mess on this start. Ledecky around the outside of Matt Stadniuk now, who's going to be making his way through now. Surely Ledecky on the very tight line through turn into 15th place, I should say. Through he goes. And that is a good pass. Aidan Young, by the way, is already into the top 20. What a great start from the WSR driver in the Corvette, just further on back there. Great start from him, not so much from his teammate, but what a chaotic start, way more chaotic than in the Fixed Series.
Yeah, good for Aidan Young to work his way through, fresh off of his record equaling 23rd GT4 PRL race win last night. Maybe trying to get his first race win that isn't in GT4 here this evening. That's going to be more than a tall task, quite frankly. 10 seconds off the race lead, 18 cars to get through, and some specialists at the front of the field. Terje Budzinski, Alawi, I think, would back themselves. Of course they would. They all would, really, in a battle with each other. But this is the race start that we saw. This is the instant that we saw coming off of turn 3. Two lines converging and some synchronized spinning.
Indeed. They have to go right the way to the back. Now, this was super high-speed stuff down here. Goodness me, how this wasn't a bigger pileup is almost a mystery. So many cars end up off the road down here at the end. And look at this, 4 cars getting back on the circuit almost at the same time down there. A couple of the Porsches involved Nicholas Mazza and David Mendonca towards the back. That's Mendonca hitting the wall quite hard. He had to come back to pit lane.
You say he gave the wall a bit of a mendonk? Is that too far?
Very good.
But he did clatter it, quite frankly. I think the nature of the corner at turn 7, where we saw that heightened instant, meant that drivers were almost able to avoid because there weren't many of them left to come through. But you're right, it is a part of the circuit where almost surprising not to see a bigger incident. Blake Ziti, that's how the AM pole sitter went around in the number 50, trying to get it corrected, and may have used the pit exit as well just to help him out and get off of the racing line. But dramatic start, not quite as dramatic as Jerez. I think it was the Fixed Series at Jerez, but yes, still drivers falling by the wayside, and the AM class all of a sudden completely shaken up. And after Blake City had that massive lead, he's not got the lead anymore. It's actually Marshall Scare with the advantage, but not by a lot at all.
That was Blake City going around for the second time, by the way, at turn 1. So he'd already made contact with Antoine Lacherie, as we saw through turn 3 on lap 1, then turn 1, lap 2. Making contact again. What a disastrous race start it's been for him. The Acura went off straight on at turn 1 was Steve Baker. We got that wrong at the time. That was Baker going wide. And then it was Nicholas Mazza, as we did say, in the Porsche, who went around on the exit of turn 1 on lap 2. So that was all that was going on further down there. First of the AMs in the field now is Marshall Scare, who we're seeing in this Mercedes. That's how much this race has changed all of a sudden. There aren't very many AMs in this field. And I've got to say, compared to the Fixed Series, they don't often find themselves up towards the front either.
Yeah, we're only early stages of the race as well. I mean, it's been attrition so far, but only 5 minutes have elapsed. I think a lot of a lot of opportunity still left in this race. Quite a lot of the field. This is the battle involving, I believe, Aidan Young, who is at the head of it as they run their way through turn number 7. Indeed, it is Aidan Young, who's up into P17 after starting pretty much, just about in 30th position. An incredible launch for him to get up this high up the order in only 6 minutes or so, and he'll nearly be on the constant tower in just a minute or two if he can catch him past Stadniuk in the next lap or so.
So Aidan Young's going to have one of those races where he's a lot quicker in the race than he was in qualifying, because it's disastrous in qualifying. Side by side further behind as the Mercedes of Marshall Scare. It's going to be overtaken here in towards turn 11. Is he late enough on the brakes? He's got to be careful of this. Some of his AM rivals will be not that far behind, and so he's got to be very wary indeed. This is on board with Fenson, then Warren is right in behind him. So Jermaine Warren who is, Devon Brock, not Jermaine Warren. Jermaine Warren's a bit further back. Devon Brock's in the Mercedes at McLaren, who's just in behind the Mercedes. So this is going to be very interesting indeed. Baker going on the defensive as well, on the way towards turn number 1. And, Scare's going to be on the outside, and he's going to have to back out of that in towards turn 1 on this occasion. But this lead looking even slimmer now for Marshall Scare.
Yeah, I think we can all see the pun on how Marshall was feeling into turn 1, not wanting to fight that one out as he will make his way through turn 2 and 3. But probably smart to back out of that one. Not necessarily his fight right now, and with a little bit more pace, Benson will likely get up the road a touch. You don't really want to get embroiled in battles with drivers who do look like they are a little bit faster, just to A, lose yourself time, or B, in the worst case scenario, lose yourself a heap of positions by going around and causing contact, etc, etc. So definitely smart there, I think, for Marshall Scare to just concede the position and not find it too hard. And we'll see how that will benefit him towards the next stage of the race. Nice to see the tight battles ongoing, though. Not least this one with Aidan Young at the front of at the head of the train.
This has been going on for the last couple of laps now, with Young leading. Down towards turn 11 they go. A couple of Sin City Racing drivers involved in here. The one directly behind Young is Noah Anderson. Then Ryan Puctel is down to 20th place. What a disaster of a start for him as he dropped down the field. Terrio still leads ahead of Elliot Patinsky, but the Acura is really applying some pressure here to Terrio. And what a big day this is for Patinsky. He's putting himself in the last 3 weeks in big championship contention as Kevin Deneuve gets back down the inside of Emmett Lindqvist into 7th place.
Yeah, Lundqvist trying to keep himself involved here, but Kevin Deneuve, a driver who had such a good start to the season, was right at the sharp end of the field. I think he'll be happy to be able to drop his round 3, where he only scored 21 points. He'll be right back into championship contention, there's no doubt about that. But he wouldn't mind getting another couple of positions as well in this race. Would surely want a top 5 after his 2 top 5s so far this season. Has last week in Suzuka was only able to get to P11 in the end. So I mean, he's going to have to keep that result whatever throughout the rest of the season. So anything on that will be an improvement from this week. But I'm sure a top 5 is what he's aiming for. And with only about a second and a half between himself and that top 5, I think he'll be pretty confident in trying to at least have a go at getting back to that group.
Let's see. It's very difficult in races of this length to coordinate that kind of thing. Once the gap has opened, you don't often see it come back again unless you've got really supreme speed. Diaz, unfortunately, had his race unravel quite early. He just wasn't really paying enough attention towards turn 1 on the opening lap as the lights went out. Terrio went and Diaz didn't. Straight through went Elliot Brzezinski, and again the driver stuck behind second place like Ricardo Delgado last time. This time round is unfortunately going backwards, and that is really didn't help Aloui, who eventually had to come past Diaz. Now in towards turn 3 they go. A little bit wide there up towards the green point. You can pull that back with a nice exit from the top. And you get a nice slipstream now on this long run through these sweepers, but not really a good overtaking chance at the very end of it through turn 7. Diaz is going to be stuck here. 10 minutes gone in this race, and we're getting to that settled part of the race now.
We are, I think drivers are starting to lock into a bit of a rhythm now, 10 minutes in, 25% gone. I think for the next 20 minutes really we could be in this phase of the race as we saw over that middle phase in the Sprint Series. Final 10 minutes, well really actually after the pit stop phase, which will probably be around the 15-minute mark to go. I think we're going to see quite a frantic end to the race, but for the time being I wouldn't be surprised if we see generally a bit of a calming down of the order, and almost like a gentle pacing from some of these guys, making sure that they can hit their lap times, can make sure that they're hitting fuel numbers, and I think we're probably likely to see somewhat of a similar situation to what we saw in the Sprint Series, in the Fixed Series, I should say, with a lot of drivers in at the same time, and that may come down to if all of these drivers can save the same amount of fuel, which they would be doing at the moment.
That's someone who's in control of the SimCity Racing YouTube channel is giving good luck to all of their drivers. Not sure who you are, but apparently watching from the sickbed. Hope you get well soon, whoever it is, from the SimCity Racing team. Drivers doing all right at the moment. Aloui is currently up in 3rd place with Chris Beats inside the top 5 as well. He's been having quite a quiet season, Chris Beats, but an effective one. Last week he maybe finally got a bit louder as he got into 4th place, but he's still not been on the podium yet. And for him to be in 4th place in the standings, that is a good return. It's again knocking on the door of a top 5. Christian Stimberg is right behind, and Kevin Denier will be on the back of him pretty shortly as well. I wonder whether he can hold back both of the PGZ McLarens here.
For Chris Beats, really, I mean, just the one top 5 in the first 4 races, but managing to get himself to the top 4, just keeping that consistency up. Even though he has got the one top 5, he's had, what is that, another like a 7th, well, an 8th, a 10th and a 13th, something like that. So it's still consistent results, just not dropping down the field heavily in one of the races, which is why he finds himself in championship contention. May find himself drop a little bit further away when drop rounds are applied, because of course he will be dropping more points than some of the others around him. But great to see him back inside the top 5 and fighting forward as well. Ubaldo Diaz will be a target, but I'm sure he'll be defended from Christian Steenberg, who himself has had a good consistent season up to this point. So it has been a really interesting battle in the opening few rounds in this championship. I think the drop rounds being applied is going to give it that extra dimension and give us a good view of how we're going to be running towards the end of the season. But so many names in contention, that's undeniable.
It's going to be much less of a headache. It's quite difficult to work out really who's where before we start to apply them after week 5. We always do it after week 5 though, so do not fear. It is normal, as much as it sounds a little bit odd sometimes. Worth noting, to piggyback onto that, those who have had bad rounds so far, like Kevin Denier and Nick Ludeke, they will gain about 20-30 points in the standings and get to within 20 if it were to be applied right now. So those are the kind of drivers we're talking about, maybe getting themselves involved. Brzezinski, though, is going to be right involved with Levesque and Lemurs at the end of the day, almost no matter where he finishes, but especially if he finishes in one of these top 2 positions, he'll be within 5 points off the lead, and what a great end to the season that would be. He looks pretty comfortable as well right now, and like he's just getting into the head and applying the pressure onto Simon Theriault out front.
Yeah, I mean, you can't even count out Simon Theriault really from this battle, because Theriault, after drop rounds are applied, would only actually be about 15 points or so behind Brzezinski, who is right in the midst for that championship lead. So if Theriault can come home and win this race, especially with the fast lap point that he's got in his back pocket right now, that could be a really good position for him to find himself in, and maybe within about 15-20 points of that championship lead coming into the second half of the season. So again, another name you can't really count out. It's also almost difficult to really see that at the moment, particularly when we went through the standings at the top of this part of the show, because of course he has one bad result which will get dropped, but that really does skew out the rest of the results. Not many points on the board so far over the course of the season, so one bad result can really skew it, and with that changing by next week, Theriault is going to be having a big boost in his championship. That is for sure, but he has to really make sure he's defending from Brzezinski. They're gapping away from Uthman Alawi, but Brzezinski is by no means leaving Theriault alone right now.
No, he's certainly not. In fact, Diaz has started to leave the 444 alone, and now Chris Beats is on the back of him, so that's one to have a look at and keep an eye on, I should say, as well. You still see them in the background. Look at the Ferrari there with a bit more breathing space. Look at the Acura with a whole lot less, and Chris Beats with a whole lot less as well. Christian Steenberg right behind him here on the way towards turn 9, which is a half chance, and you can see Beats there just half a car width over further to the inside than he otherwise might be, just protecting that inside line. He knows what's at stake here. He knows that Steenberg is looking for a way through.
Yeah, and Steenberg's going to be doing everything he can just to pick the correct line and just almost put Chris Beats off of his line and almost create that opportunity to move your way through. It is a difficult track to overtake here at Zandvoort. You cannot really depend on having a run towards a braking zone like you can at a circuit like the Red Bull Ring, where turn 1, turn 3, turn 4, it's almost invariable that you will get a run, you will get an opportunity to make a move. At Zandvoort, you really have to craft it. You have to get close enough, you have to try and put the drivers around you off their lines and make them double guess where you're going to go, but it's part of the craft of the of racing here at Zandvoort, and I think that's what Christian Steenberg is doing at the moment, getting in the mirrors of Chris Beats, but it's not putting off the 33 for the time being, and he's holding firm in P5.
On board with the McLaren. Stuck a GoPro to the side, clearly. In towards turn 3. And now, can he get the run out of here? But Steenberg's almost too close through that corner. And he allows the Porsche to use its traction, which it's just so good at, even when going around the cambered turn like that one, running around the top. It was expertly done by Chris Beats, who now will focus his sights on maybe trying to catch Diaz. That might just alleviate some pressure on him. But Steenberg is finding this difficult to make an overtake, if indeed he is even trying to make one for the moment. We're 23.5 minutes from home, and that means we can't be far from pit stops. That does generally discourage people from making moves because they think, well, there's a better chance coming up here, and it's going to be in the pit lane.
Yeah, and I think generally you're not necessarily in this position if you are in Christian Steenberg's shoes. You're not necessarily going to be trying to force the overtake, but you will be trying to, as I was saying, kind of just get involved in the mirrors and try and get in the head of Chris Beats, because you may just gain the third position through the mind games. I mean, again, we saw that happen in the Fixed Series, of course, with Tyler Graf going into the pit lane by cutting the pit lane line after trying to double guess what Brett Thurman was doing. And you can almost try and do that lap after lap on the circuit by just trying to juke out drivers from their line, maybe feign a move to the inside when you're not really going for it, and scare them off the racing line, scare them wide, and pick up a position anyway. You haven't really done much to do so. So there's always that possibility. But Steenberg not making anything work just yet, but yeah, I think you're right. Probably content to sit in P6 for the time being as we approach what could be the pit stop phase. But I still think we're about, 5 laps or so away from drivers or drivers en masse coming into the box.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, we have seen some already scheduled pit stops, by the way. Steve Baker, Ethan Bass, Devon Brock have already been in. So has Joshua Spears, Kevin Kiernitz and Blake Zeta are in. So in AM class land, it is certainly time to be in. But for everybody else, it isn't really. Up on the jacks there goes Blake Zeta. He's been in the walls so far. Goodness me, has he been in trouble. Lasserit, meanwhile, on the back of Marcio Scare. So Scare is now the leader of the class, and he is by some margin. But he needs to be careful he doesn't get involved in battles like this, because it will lose him time compared to those early stoppers. Oh, it's a big slide. Big slide through turn 7. He's got to slow right down to gather it up again, and I reckon that could be the lead of the AM class going away from the driver of the Mercedes there.
Yeah, not exactly the line that you want to be taking through the middle part of the lap, and it looks like it's just ebbing away. Marshall Scare looks like he's just about going to stay in what should be the AM lead for the time being, but Dino Vea is right there on hand to pick up the pieces. Of course, we've got the top 23 in this race, all pro drivers, and then the next 6 are all AM drivers, so a clear separation at the moment between the pros and the AMs, and it means that we can quite easily follow those battles for the lead. But Dino Vela is going to be right in the mirrors, I'm sure, very, very shortly for the race lead in the AMs, as we're seeing Basinski in the mirrors of Terrier for the lead in the pros. But the two battles are just quite a long way away from each other, pretty much, about a sector away from each other at the moment.
Yeah, they are. It's a pretty spread out racetrack at the moment. Last driver on the lead lap is Joshua Spears, who's a minute 7 down, and it's only a minute 32, minute 33 round here.
Yeah.
So that is a pretty big spread of the field. And again, it goes to the problem we've been talking about again and again for these guys out front. How can you ever do an undercut if you're Elliot Brzezinski here, knowing you'll be in a mountain of traffic if you pit in too early?
Exactly, and that's the issue for Brzezinski, because even if Tyler Graf was able to, it's almost a shame that Tyler Graf wasn't able to get the clean pit stop in, because it would have been really intriguing to see where he came out and how he was able to cope with the traffic for that lap or two of the difference of the strategy. But for Brzezinski, you can't afford, if you're the driver chasing, you just cannot afford to put yourself in a position where you could find yourself losing 3 seconds and go from fighting for the race lead to getting overcut by Uthman Alawi and Ubaldo Diaz, who just by staying out on the generic strategy and trying to keep themselves safe from that kind of position are going to gain the positions anyway. So Brzezinski is in a really difficult spot. He has to try and wait for everybody to pit in before him, or guess when everybody behind him is going to pit, but you can't do that with any kind of confidence, can you?
I know we're repeating ourselves, but it's so true. You just cannot pit early and make it work at the moment. You've just got to wait. And at the moment, that may be quite frustrating. Here's Diaz. It's a great run from Alawi out of turn 3, by the way. If you didn't get that, you might have been under a bit of pressure here. Diaz is so close in behind him now. Over the top of the hill they go. Now might he go? Oh, no, not quite. He could have had a look through turn 7. Is it really worth it? Again, not sure. Over halfway through this race. Still just 19 minutes remaining. Simon Terrier still leads ahead of Elliot Brzezinski, then Uthman Alawi, who's at the front of this group, ahead of Ubaldo Diaz, then Chris Beats in the Porsche, Christian Steenberg and Kevin Denier in the PGZ McLarens just in behind that, and Emmett Lindqvist rounding out the top 8. Other than that, We have got people quite far off the back at the moment and won't be in contention for the race win. Marshall Scare's still going, out in the lead of the AMS, but he's been caught by Dino Vella now. That Mercedes is having real trouble in these last few moments, and so the leader of the class might well be Devin Brock at the end of all this, because he's been having a much more consistent time with things further down, having already made his stop. It's the sort of ironic difference between Pro and AM, to be honest. The AMs are much more able to make their early stops, come out in some clean air as the leaders go past pit lane again, as expected. Brzezinski really close in as expected, but lifting off on the way down towards turn 1. He's playing a bit of a fuel game.
Is he going for an overcut here? Could that be the option for the strategy for Brzezinski? If the undercut isn't going to be really a possibility, is the overcut what he's going to be looking for? It's definitely a possibility. Of course, he'd be running that lap with less fuel than Simon Theriault, so it may be worth a go. I can't imagine he'd lose 3 seconds by doing it, but it's just whether he can save an entire lap worth of fuel by sitting in behind Theriault, which is going to be an impressive feat to be able to manage in only the span of, well, we've had 22.5 minutes so far, so would be impressive to do so. But if that is what he's trying to do, would be good. If nothing else, he could short off the pit stop a little bit by saving a little bit of fuel. Has to put less in the car, and even those saved 2-3 tenths could be enough to get himself ahead of Theriault in the pit stop. So all of the little margins could be crucial.
Peter Nobwell's been off. At least he's dropping down the field from the top 10, and he's continuing to slow. Oh, there he is. There's your answer. He was already losing places before he spun at turn 8, I believe, but that is totally sealed the deal for him. We'll have a replay of that in a few moments' time as we get closer to pit stop time here in the Pro class. Yeah, I thought that was what might have happened. These cars are so close on the edge on the rear end that some of these cars just going a bit too far on the edge on the rear end. And now have a look at that. The rear tyres are burning alive, and Nobwell just couldn't quite control it.
Yeah, going around at turn 8, it's not really what he wanted to be doing, and he's going to be well out of contention now after being in a fantastic position inside the top 10, which is disappointing for him, I'm sure. But, there's still a good few chances remaining in the season for him to try and get himself a good result and, well, to continue a couple of good results throughout the start of this season. Still no pit stop throughout most of the field, kind of as we'd expect. I think maybe at the 13-minute mark, 12-minute mark, you might see a lot of drivers into the pit stops. But we always see this. Drivers go far later than 50% into the race. Shortens off that pit stop, means that they can run lower fuel for longer. And it generally makes a little bit more sense, which is why that is what the consensus is.
And even though being stuck behind someone isn't a great idea, it's certainly better than being stuck behind someone slower than you. At the moment, they're just stuck behind someone marginally slower. You don't want to be stuck behind someone a lot slower. That's the decision. It's the best of two evils at the moment, unfortunately, for some of these drivers. Like Diaz, who's probably quicker than Aloui, and Steenberg as well, who's probably quicker than Beats. It's difficult for them to do anything about it just for the moment. I'm sure they're probably trying to overtake, to be honest, but it just doesn't look like it. That's how difficult it is around here. In towards the penultimate corner again. The slower speeds in some of these corners does mean you can stay a bit closer, but that's a bit wide into the gravel there for Diaz. It's not going to get the run that he required. Now then, they're just starting to stay a bit further right out of that final corner. Diaz was either looking to the inside or just looking to fake the pit entrance there. Now the games have really started to begin, but they've got to make sure they enter properly, unlike a couple of drivers in the Fixed Series race.
Not naming names, are we, Ewan? Yeah, they've got to be very, very careful on the pit entry. It is a difficult one here, but I think if they're expecting to come in, it's a piece of cake. But if they're coming in late, it can be one, as we saw, I should say, in the Fixed Series. One where you come in a little bit too late, it's just simply not going to work out for you, and you're going to be hit by a big penalty. And I think maybe some of those drivers will have seen that. I don't imagine they all will have done, but some of them may have done, and are going to be extra careful, knowing exactly what the risks are that they would be taking. That they are going to make sure that they nail the pit entry and leave no room on the table for anything to go wrong. Maybe this lap, maybe next lap, we'll wait and see. But Theriault and Brzezinski, regardless of what they do, they have been able to pull that gap out to now pretty much 4.3 seconds between Brzezinski and Aloui. And, however they go on the strategy, they just have the pace advantage over everybody else in the field at the moment.
And we're about a third of the way from the finish now. This race ticking on by with Simon Terrio leading the way. Just completing lap after lap after lap. This will be the end of 17. And surely soon we'll start to see some pit stops. Still, the top 26 have yet to come in. And this is why partly the leaders are having to wait so long as well. You need to let that mid-pack just disintegrate a little bit with pit stops, but they're just not stopping in the midfield at the moment. They're just not going in.
No, I mean, and nobody inside who was inside that top 17, 18 after the opening couple of laps has come in yet at all. Of course, we have that spin, which is why Aiden Young's into the top 16, but we were talking about Aiden Young in 17th place about 20 minutes ago or so. So you can really see how none of them have come into the box, and there is that big separation really in the groups. Really, after the back end of the top 20, as the gaps just do widen out quite a lot, then you start getting into some of the AM drivers who haven't yet made their pit stop, and then a couple of the first couple of pros that have made their pit stop, but still nearly a minute off the lead. There is separation. It's just too far back for the leaders to slot themselves into. If they found themselves that far down, then they can, say bye-bye to any hopes of winning the race, because they really want to be, after their pit stops, with the shortness of the pit stop that they should have, be finding themselves towards top, at the back end of the top 20, maybe 21st, 22nd. But that is a real train right now, and you can't afford to put yourself into that situation.
You really can't, even if it may be frustrating to be stuck behind the 444. Out through the final couple of corners they now come. 12 minutes to go. Now is the moment. Finally, Terrio's in, and just about Beats managed to get himself in as well. So the race leader is the first to blink. He's going to bring a lot of drivers down with him, though. Interesting that he allows Brzezinski to get a bit of an overcut on him, though, with low fuel and clear air. Where does Terrio come out? It's going to be so important for his race, with 11.5 minutes to go, that he is in clean air. Out of the pit lane he comes now. Oh, he's going to be in traffic. He is in trouble here. The race leader's in big trouble. Aiden Young is leading that group for now, 12th place, and Terrio is right behind it. He's only a second or so behind it. He's better hope they pit very soon, otherwise his race lead will be over.
Yeah, I think if they come in this coming lap, if Ryan Puchtel gets out of the way this lap, I think he'll be okay. He's 1.4 behind, and he wasn't much quicker than them, not 1.4 seconds a lap quicker than them over the course of the last 20-30 minutes. Yes, he's coming to the pit lane, he should be a little bit faster now and have the impetus to try and push with Brzezinski yet to make his pit stop, but I think if they can all come in front of him now, this could still work out for him. Remember though, Brzezinski getting the overcut means that he may be able to shorten off the pit stop a little bit as well, so the advantage would then naturally go to the 91 anyway. So I think it is, the ball is in Brzezinski's court right now, but Terrio is not out of it by any stretch of the imagination.
This is very interesting. Terrio is going to be hoping for pit stops here. Brzezinski is not in, but the others are. Oh, they've all followed each other very nearly. PGZ at the very last moment decide that this is not the moment, and they're probably right. There's no point following these two. As into the pit lane, Aloy and Diaz follow each other. Ubaldo Diaz has been stuck to the back of that Ferrari. Now, is he finally going to overtake him with a pit stop here? Aloy gets up onto the Jackson. He's going to change at least a tyre. Who's going to come out first out of those two? As Terrio now has seen the leaders in front of him stay out. This is disastrous now. And just out ahead of him, Aloy has got out just in front of Diaz. You would have just seen it in the pit exit there. He just about managed it. These two absolutely locked together, and here comes Chris Beats. He's got them both. Oh, he's on the outside of Diaz here. In towards turn 2. He's up to speed. He's up to temperature. And down to the inside of turn 3 he goes. He needs to slide up in front of the Ferrari. And he has. Now can he hold on through the S's? This is a big run now. Up and down the hill again. Chris Beats could be on his way to a podium here.
What a strategy so far from the 33. It's worked out perfectly, and Alawi and Diaz almost battling their way out of the pit lane means that Chris Beats can just about slither his way into what should be a top 3. Clearly, it's a lucky number. It's 3 for Chris Beats on the car, but let's see if he can stay there, because we've still got 9 minutes to go, and you'd have to say that the 444 and the number 8 are going to be hounding him towards the end of the race if this is indeed the battle, and the only 3 drivers really in the battle for P3 by the time we reach the checkered flag.
I reckon this could be. It just a little bit depends what the PGZs do further up front. Terrio is, I think, still losing time here. And now Brzezinski's in. I think Brzezinski's run it as long as possible. And so the top 8 will all follow him here. And I think he's going to be in the lead. Let's see the rejoin, though. There is the pit lane. All of the drivers at the front coming in. Terrio will get the clean air, but it's laps too late, I'm afraid. Ledecky carries on, but that doesn't matter. Elliot Brzezinski is going to be in the lead here by some margin. On the inside line, he's run his tank dry. He's played his strategy to perfection, and he's on his way to a 3rd win in 3 weeks.
What a strategy from Brzezinski. And Ledecky staying out as well. An extra lap means that, if anything, if he needed a bit of teammate support, he'd be able to get it. But Terrio just not, well, coming up just a little bit short on that strategy battle, and meaning that he might have to end up settling for second. Steenberg, though, out of the pit lane in what should be P3, and Denoyer up into the top 4, I believe, on the strategy after their pit stop. So big movements there. If anything, allowing Diaz going backwards rather than Beats going forwards.
Yep, I think so. The stops, by the way, 7.7 and 7.9 for the PGZ. So they've either been saving a lot or they're about to have to, because, yeah, it looks like it's going to be 3rd and 4th for them at the moment, ahead of Chris Beats, who will only be 5th. So he's got ahead of a couple of drivers he was behind, and now he's behind a couple of drivers he was ahead of. He's exactly where he was before. Just all of the world just moved around him, and he stayed in the same place. Lindqvist is a lot closer to these guys now as well. But, I mean, we can praise Elliot Brzezinski all we like, but what was Simon Terrio thinking? What was he thinking, putting himself back into the midfield like that when everybody was still so close, when he still had 3 laps of fuel to burn, when he had 3 laps of higher fuel load than Brzezinski? What was he thinking? I can't get my head around his strategy at all.
Well, I think we'll be able to at least get an idea from him what the strategy was, if he's able to just keep himself on the podium in the final 7 minutes here. Ledecky coming in means that everybody else will fly through. Everybody else will fly through, at least inside the top 10. In all of the pit stops, there really wasn't much movement towards the back end of the teams. I mean, Aiden Young stayed in P16. Fonseca stayed just about inside the top 12. And Ledecky will make his way out in P10. Kevin Simpson may come around to try and overtake him. He will stay in 10th for the time being. This battle with Chris Beats involving Alawi, Diaz and Lindqvist now over P5, not quite the podium that they were looking for, but PGZ are going to be delighted with how it's worked out for them on the strategy, that's for sure.
Darkness beginning to fall around here at Zandvoort. 6 minutes to go. 6 minutes from the end of one of the most frustrating races Alberto Diaz has ever driven in his life, imagine. He's still stuck behind Uthman Alawi in 6th here. And being stuck behind him has lost him positions now as well to Chris Beats, Kevin Denier and Christian Steenberg. What a frustrating evening he has had. Diaz currently 13th place in the Drivers' Championship. Still on course for his best result of the season, I think. Yeah, it would be at the moment. Svet's current best is only 7th, so I guess it's a tied best, but even so, he is not going to be best pleased about it, even if it is a good result on paper.
Yeah, I think there are probably a couple of drivers like that who maybe in situations in this race are hoping for a little bit more than they're currently getting. And even if it is a decent result for them in the picture of their championship and how it's gone for them so far, that hope, the possibility of them getting a little bit further up the field, I think is going to be disappointing if they aren't quite exactly where they want to be. But still, good points is always a good thing. Even if you don't get a headline result, getting consistent points is exactly what you need to be doing in a championship like this. And even if you're not going for the title, going for a top 5 means that, but for the likes of Chris Beats, a top 5 is fantastic. I mean, if you were P4 in the championship and you finished P5, you'd think, oh yeah, that's all right. But it's only his second top 5 of the season if he's able to hold on. So it would be a fantastic result for him and keep him right up there in contention.
There are still 3 laps to go at the end of this one, by the way, with 4.5 minutes remaining in the race, so plenty of time yet. And I think Diaz is probably the closest person to making a move here. The pressure that he's putting on the 444 Ferrari sort of preventing him from getting any closer to Chris Beats here in 5th place. Who does he say? Looks like he's going to be pretty pleased with a top 5. He'll stay up there in the championship for sure in that top 5. As I say, the drop weeks will be applied after this one, and it will get a whole lot more interesting and realistic for how it will end this season. This is Ethan Bass, who is in 22nd, at a Devin Brock, who's leading the AM class ahead of Kevin Kiernetz, the championship leader in the AMs. These two absolutely nose to tail, as Steenberg has made an error. Big error here. He's now behind his teammate Kevin Denier.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, it's Kevin who has the advantage. Of course, there isn't much between these two in the championship either. Well, actually, I say that. Steenberg's non-start back in P10 puts him a lot further back. But, the second you drop Kevin Denoyer's lowest round, they're only 8 points apart coming into this race. As, that's Steenberg getting through. What's that doing?
Oh, no, that's team orders there.
Oh. A little bit early, isn't it, for team orders, you think? Maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, probably.
Wait till the last lap, personally.
I thought you meant in the season. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, no, I just meant in the race.
Okay. Well, at the moment, Denoyer with the drop week would be 6 points behind Levesque, and Steenberg would be 14. So, I think that's unless Steenberg's offered that position up, I think that's a bit early and indeed a bit overly generous, maybe, or maybe the wrong choice. But I guess they're putting all the eggs in the Denoyer basket already.
Well, this is the consideration, I think. With Denoyer dropping, he'll drop 21 points, which means that, if you just drop that round, he will be 51 points behind Levesque, and he will gain as many points as he can tonight. P3 will garner you 50 points. So, as it stands, he'd only be the 1 point behind Levesque. He'd be, therefore, ahead of Lemieux. Brzezinski would be ahead by a couple of points, but not by a great deal. I think only by 1 point, so I think my maths is correct, and that's the biggest asterisk you could add to anything I'm about to say. I think Brzezinski, Denoyer, and Levesque, at the moment, as it stands, could only be split by 2 points if it were to finish as it is, and that could be the consideration at PGZ to allow Kevin through.
I am not sure on the maths, to be honest. We will just wait till next week and find out. Meanwhile, Ryan Puchtel is still trying to work his way back through the field again after a poor lap one, and here he goes on Aidan Young, who's braking a bit early there for turn one. Puchtel just trying to get the exit, or the entry, sorry, the inside line, but he can't do it. If you hold on to the inside there through turn one, you're more than likely going to hold on to the place, and that's even if you do get alongside, as Ryan Puchtel has just found out.
Not the ideal line for Aidan Young, but just about managing to hold on for P16. Didn't look like the easiest line, but he made it work for him. And not quite the hugging the inside wall as we saw a little bit earlier on that spat out a couple of drivers into the exit of turn number one. Sun hasn't said as much as I thought it was going to, but it has got a little bit darker. I thought we would see a little bit more of a prevalence of the headlights on these cars, but it hasn't really made too much of a difference, it seems, throughout the 40 minutes.
Not for the moment. As I mentioned earlier, we are in April in Sim. Next week we'll be racing back in March again, then April the week after that. So it does jump around a little bit this season as far as time of year goes, but not really very much night driving at all. I wouldn't call this night driving just yet, even if it is getting a little bit darker, as the white flag is now waving here at Zandvoort. Are there going to be any overtakes here in the top 8 to surprise us right at the very end here?
Yeah, I think like I said, Terrio wouldn't mind an overtake or two. Well, actually, no, not two, because if it's 2 overtakes, he'll be going backwards. But he wouldn't mind getting through on Brzezinski. It's just not going to happen, I don't think, unless Brzezinski has a bit of a mare somewhere. Denoyer and Steenberg, you can't imagine they're going to swap around without a mistake either. But beats Alawi, Diaz. I think particularly Alawi and Diaz. Oh, would we go back to this battle with Aidan Young again? The inside line for the 427. He's going to defend again. Great stuff from him.
If that's how you give it a proper go, Ryan Puchtel is challenging Aidan Young as much as he possibly can here. The others are sort of just letting it happen, throwing their arms up and saying, well, I can't do it. Ryan Puchtel's at least giving it a go. Even if it hasn't quite been successful, I wouldn't put bet against him throwing it down the inside somewhere else here as well. Maybe not turn 7. It's barely a braking zone up here, but look at how he gets closer here in the Porsche. He holds a nicer inside line there. He's got a better run now through turn 8. There's a big braking zone at 9 here. Watch him set himself up here. Oh, he's not quite got turn 8 right. You can see him looking to the inside. He was going to do it if he had a better exit. He just didn't quite have it. So it looks like it's going to end in 17th for Ryan Puchtel here. Meanwhile, Elliot Brzezinski comes through the final corner to take victory here at Zandvoort. 3 in a row for the Fildenets Racing driver. Acura win again in the PRL GT3 Sprint Series, and it's Elliot Brzezinski this time, as the battles inside the top 8 all stay the same on the run towards the line. A frustrating race comes to an end for Obardo Diaz, Mugalango Fonseca can't quite get past Kevin Simpson, who makes up lots of places on the day as well. He's up to 11th. What about Puttel further back? Not sure. This is the battle for the AM win. Just in behind, Ethan Bass. It's Brock versus Kienitz, who have both lost a lot of time on this lap, and they're battling it out into the final corner. Kienitz, the championship leader, trying to find a way through. He was trying to get the exit, couldn't quite do it. And it is going to be Devin Brock who wins the race here in the AM class. He will get 1 point closer to Kienitz and bring the gap down to 6 with 4 rounds to go.
I mean, he nearly crashed there at the end. I think that was, I'm not too sure what happened there for Ethan Bass, but he nearly checked up in the final corner. And there was a clump of the wall, actually, from the eventual race winner of Devin Brock. I'm really not sure what happened there, but maybe it was a run out of fuel, because that's seemingly what's happened to Dino Vea.
Yes, indeed it has. That sounds like a horrible noise, doesn't it? That's like some gravel in a blender. Let's hope someone... oh, come on. Someone push him. I don't think he's got any friends to push him. Indeed, that was Jermaine Warren, the last driver on the lead lap. So, fella's going to go nowhere. He's going to have to make some sandcastles, I'm afraid, down towards the back end of the field. Nobody's coming round to push him. Oh, dear, oh, dear. Well, that's going to be a DNF for him. Never mind. It's Elliot Brzezinski who takes the win by 1.9 seconds ahead of Simon Terrio, with the two McLarens of Kevin Denier and Christian Steinberg, third and fourth. Chris Beach round out the top 5, with Ifman Eloy just missing out, with Alberto Diaz spending a frustrating race behind him. Emmett Lindqvist, Corin Lenaway and Nick Ludecki round out the top 10. It is 11th place for Kevin Simpson, with Miguel Fonseca next, just behind him. Marc-Andre Garon finishes in 13th, but Matt Stenwick and Austin Cobb rounding out the top 15. Aidan Young held off Ryan Puttel in a great battle towards the end. Matthew Biscaglia, Steve Baker and Peter Nobwell round out the top 20. 21st was Storm Carmody ahead of Devin Brock, who held off Kevin Kienitz to the line. Ethan Bass did drop back at the end there, finishing 24th ahead of Noah Hansen. William Fenton just outside the top 5 with Blake Zitti, the last driver on the AM podium. Nicholas Mazda finishes 28th after his early spin. Marshall Scare led in the AM for a while, finishes 4th in the end ahead of Gavin Aberman. Trackers out the top 5 in AM. Jacob Blankenship finishes 31st ahead of Joshua Spears and Jermaine Warren, the last drivers to finish on the lead lap. Dino Vella won't finish on the lead lap quite, but he finishes 34th regardless. Mark Elliott, David Mendonca, Antoine Lacherie should be classified, but Daniel Haynes won't in 38th. Let's have a chat to Elliot Brzezinski, the race winner for the 3rd week in a row. Congratulations, Elliot, on another win. The pit strategy was the one that went out for you there. Were you surprised to see Simon come in when he did, or was your plan to run the tank dry all along?
Yeah, first off, we actually made the interview this time, so that's nice. But yeah, I think, I mean, from the go, I was, I as soon as I saw we weren't on pole, then kind of the thought switched to fuel saving. And I knew our race car was quite a bit stronger than the quali car, so yeah, the plan from the start was just to save as much fuel as I could and jump in the stops. But I will say I was surprised to see him pit 2 laps earlier. I didn't think that I did that much of a job, but still, yeah, the plan was to jump him in the pits, and then as soon as I came out and saw I had a gap, it was just making sure we brought it home to then. But yeah, 3 for 3 feels pretty good.
Absolutely. And on 3, I would describe fairly similar circuits, Jerez, Suzuka and Zandvoort. What is it about these circuits that you seem to be suiting the Acura so well? You seem to have got this car really nailed around these circuits.
Yeah, I don't know. I actually thought I wasn't going to be as strong for this round, but I think the car is just really good in high speed. Like we saw in Daytona where it maybe struggled a bit in the straight lines, but as soon as you get a high-speed flowing track going, I think that's where the Acura really shines. We also worked quite hard on the setup for this one, so yeah, I think the combination of the both just suits it well. I don't know. I don't know anything more than that.
Yeah, no, don't blame me. I mean, it is a circuit. There are some more circuits like that, I should say, coming up, certainly. Road Atlanta and Bathurst, for example, that maybe will suit you a bit more. So we look forward to seeing those. In the meantime, though, congratulations on your 3rd win in a row, and thanks for chatting to us.
Yeah, thank you. And it's always nice to see the hard work that the Phil Dennis Racing teams put, come to fruition. So thank you guys. Have a nice night.
Absolutely. Thanks very much. Elliot Pazynski there, the winner tonight here in the GT3 Sprint Series. Devin Brock wins in the AM class, and he can now join us as well. Welcome, Devin. Good to have you with us. Congratulations on the win in the AM class. Just how were those final few laps with Kevin right up behind you there?
I mean, it was really intense because I was on Ethan and Kevin was on me, so that was a lot of fun. Hats off to Kevin and Ethan because that was a lot of fun and real dicey. And I definitely didn't expect Ethan to run out of fuel right in front of me, so that definitely caught me out and tagged the wall. But luckily, it was the final lap, so didn't matter too much. But man, that was a lot of fun. So.
I think it caught us all by surprise a little bit. What's your hopes for the rest of the season now? You're still around 10 points behind Kevin going into the next round of the championship. Blake ZT up there as well. It's a very interesting AM championship. How are you feeling going into the...
Feeling pretty good. I wasn't too confident in Zandvoort because I don't spend too much time on Zandvoort. But with how the next the schedule's looking like, Road Atlanta, know that pretty well. Donington, Bathurst, and Hockenheim, I feel pretty good about it. So I like my chances. Just putting in time in practice and then putting in work when the actual race happens. And continue to get podiums and wins.
Yeah, absolutely. We look forward to seeing it. Congratulations on the win in the AM class here. And thanks for chatting to us.
Appreciate it, guys. Take care.
Thanks very much, Devin Brock there, the AM winner here tonight at Zandvoort. Well, that's just about it for us here in the PRL GT3 Series Fixed and Sprint here this week. As we mentioned, we'll be returning at Road Atlanta next week. There should be an interesting one of these championships come to their conclusion here very shortly.
Yeah, Road Atlanta, another tight, twisty circuit. You know, one that we go to a little bit more often in some GT3 machinery, though, so maybe a little bit of some chances of some drivers to get a little bit of practice. I know that the Petit Le Mans is going to be a few months away, but you can never say no to a little bit of practice, can you, Ewan?
It's about 8 months after this race, so it's probably late practice rather than very early. But anyway, I take your point. It will be Road Atlanta, 10th of February, and it will be at 8:30 Eastern Time. We're going live once again, so you're very welcome to join us once again. Big thanks to everyone who's been tuned in over the course of tonight's racing here at Zandvoort. Hope you've enjoyed it. I've been Ewan O'Leary alongside Darrell Thacker, and Hugo Louise has been behind the cameras. Until we see you in 1 week's time at Road Atlanta, where Elliot Pazynski will try and go 4 for 4 in the PRL GT3 Sprint Series, it's goodbye for now.